OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 7:30. You're welcome along to Friday's OTB AM. It's Eoin and Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent with you until 10 o'clock this morning. We've got a crappy quiz coming your way, as we always do on a Friday. We've got quick picks, as we always do on a Friday. And then we're going to be looking ahead to some of the weekend sports. We're going to have Gordon Darcy and Niamh Briggs with us to look ahead to the second test in New Zealand. And Karl McKaigue will be back on the show to look ahead to Derry against Galway in particular tomorrow. We'll also chat a little bit about Kerry and Dublin with him as well. Dan, how are you getting on?
I'm good on.
Last night you were kind of devouring what is your favourite time of the football calendar.
Oh, listen, obscure European ties is where it's at. Like this is like niche football interest / also like really, really important games of football as well. Sort of like it is sort of an unusual time of the year where you have like, teams in season, teams out of season, playing like, often like the earlier rounds of these qualifying competitions in the Champions League earlier this week. You'd have more recognised teams, I suppose, playing in that. The likes of Ludogorets, who Shamrock Rovers would likely play next, who were like group stage regulars in the Champions League, and a few other big teams like that, Karabag and a few others. Whereas you had the Conference League last night, which is a little bit of a, I don't know, it's sort of a cocktail of various clubs from around the place. Yeah, and saying that, like, they're playing for 350 grand, the winners of each tie, which in some cases is absolutely extraordinary amounts of money. So they're incredibly meaningful games. So like, you had two Irish clubs involved last night, and a couple of the Northern Irish sides as well. For example, I watched Sligo Rovers play on the stream against Bala Town from Wales. It was an absolutely mad game. Like, it was an insane game. Like, it was played on an artificial pitch, so it was like obviously a bouncy hockey pitch that in a place called Oswestry, where I've actually been a couple of times, which Bows fans remember as the place where their first incarnation of the club died, losing a Champions League game 4-0 around 12-13 years ago. Horrible pitch, but there was a massive Sligo contingent over. And like, these games really, really matter, and like, they were probably a bit nervous. They won 2-1. They should probably get through next week, at home and on a sort of a better surface, and play Motherwell in the next round, and that'll open doors. But it is a weird sort of counterculture movement of like the football wing, or these early games. Like, there was this team playing last night in Gibraltar, a team called Bruno's Magpies, and like, you scroll through live score, people will you'll sort of do a live score scan maybe, and you see sort of various teams you recognise and names you recognise. You look at a team, that's maybe a Polish team, or that's a sort of a Latvian team, just probably trying to guess off the names, and then you sort of see Bruno's Magpies pop up, and like, where the hell like, it sounds like a team in a darts league or something, and they're playing in the Europa Conference League, and they're playing against Crusaders from Northern Ireland, and they won 2-1 in their first leg game. Nice. So, but there is a great story behind this. Actually, it was Rory Houston and RTE did a feature on these guys, which was a really, really good piece, because they jump off the page and you're thinking, well, who are Bruno's Magpies? So the story behind this team is that 10 years ago there was this 18-year-old footballer who had moved from England to Gibraltar with his parents, and he was struggling to get picked up by a couple of teams in Gibraltar. At the time, Gibraltar, I don't think, were in UEFA, so there was a local league in Gibraltar, which was like, your equivalent of, I suppose, your Sunday League or whatever, your sort of Leinster Senior, or your sort of national equivalent of it. And he couldn't get a game, so he eventually decided that like the only option available to him was to set up his own team.
Of course. So
he went into, what else do you do in Gibraltar? You set up your own team. So Bruno's was a nightclub.
Bruno's Bar and Restaurant.
Yeah, Bruno's Bar and Restaurant is a nightclub and restaurant.
I'm reading Wikipedia.
You're reading it as we go on, you see. I was trying to like educate you, and you're just going to read it. I don't even have it in front of me now.
Keen.
But long story short, Bruno's is a bar, and the Magpies is purely because he met this coach called Mike, who like knew his football stuff. I think his name was Mike, who was a Newcastle fan, and his condition of coming on board to this team was that they had to have Magpies in the name. So it was Bruno's nightclub, Magpies, Mike, whatever his name is, and they created this team called Bruno's Magpies. And they were just a team that just had a kick about of a game, but then Gibraltar's all of a sudden got membership to UEFA. Then all of a sudden they were like in the second division locally, but suddenly the second division in Gibraltar became one division off the top flight and the opportunity to qualify for Europe. And they've steadily over the last decade, I think he paid something like $1,000 to set it up initially, this team, but they've steadily become more and more serious to the point now where they have quite a few professional players playing for them, in addition to some locals who are a bit like the Gibraltar national team when Ireland played them that time. I was over for that mad trip when everything was going on with Delaney. But like their local team, I think like several of the Gibraltar team are like border officers, because obviously the border with Spain is so close. So they work on the sort of border guards and they play international football. But similarly, the top level team there, the top level teams there, a lot of the lads are from that sort of profile. So Bruno's Magpies are now playing European football and beating a team from Northern Ireland last night. I think it's still bad for your morale if you find out you've lost. Like, imagine Crusaders, you qualify for European football and you're ready for these excuses that come out for teams. Well, you just can't compete with the resources of this team. Yeah. You lose to a team that's like Ludogorets or something. Football in Bulgaria, it's different. If you lose to Bruno's Magpies, it's difficult to come forward and say that there's a long-term infrastructural, social, reasons why you're losing to this team.
To be fair, Magpies are not a pub team; they're a bar and restaurant team.
Yeah,
they're a little bit better.
It's a more nuanced. They're a gastropub team.
They are.
That can be the new slang. Is like, this is only a gastropub league, So that's the magic of Europe.
25 points behind Lincoln Red Imps there in the Gibraltarian. Is that a word? Championship.
Yeah.
But they are in the championship race. A couple of the other clubs more in the relegation battle at the moment in Gibraltar. Manchester 62, College 1975, and Lynx. There's some great names for.
Yeah, it's like sort of fantasy football names, and it really is some version of that. Or like when I was in UCD, the Super League in UCD, which is like the 11-a-side league where people would like enter team names, most of which would get you cancelled.
Yeah.
Now.
So this is your dreamland at the moment. Bruno's Magpies, keep an eye on them. They're playing the second leg next Thursday at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
And they're away. So they're going to travel to Northern Ireland to play Crusaders next Thursday. 2-1 up is their lead in that one. We just want to mention quickly kind of your viewing experience so far of the Euros as well. I mean, Northern Ireland got their goal in the competition last night. It was obviously
they did, yeah. I did switch. Like I was watching the Sligo Rovers and Derry games sort of back to back last night, so I didn't really see too much. I had sort of the Northern Ireland game on at the back. I sort of switched on. There was a hearty rendition of God Save the Queen from the Northern Ireland side, which is I still find that a bit odd. It's obviously one of the issues they have sometimes with the men's and women's teams, the inclusivity for communities of the anthem. I still find it quite hard to get my head around sometimes, but anyway, that's a by the by. And they were 3-0 down after 15 minutes, and I think they got a respectable 4-1 defeat in the end. And I saw some of the coverage after, and it's very much, they got their goal, and it's great for them. And it is like their qualification story is tremendous, because of quite a few of the teams. A few of the players on the team would probably have a Gibraltar international style profile, in the sense of they're working on all sorts of jobs. Like I think it was being highlighted, like one or two of their players were sort of working on the front line as such during the pandemic, and then they were also managed to qualify for the Euros on the side, which is amazing. Now, part of me though, I have to admit though, with this Euros, I would find that particularly frustrating from the perspective of the Republic of Ireland team, that I felt that the last Women's World Cup, when that was on TV here, I think that was a really accessible event. A lot of people got into it, and there's almost a sense of, well, this is the level you have to aspire towards, And I know with confederational qualifying, you'll have teams, say, from other confederations, which will be pretty weak, right? But you can say that about the Men's World Cup as well too, right? You'll see teams that Ireland are better than in it, but you can't qualify against them. But I would have thought with the Euros, and I see a lot of like Louise Quinn is doing a column for our newspaper, and you see a lot of the various Irish players are doing some of the punditry in RTE, but it has to be madly frustrating for them, although you never possibly say it. It's diplomatically, you have to be careful about saying it, that you see Northern Ireland participating in it, and there's no doubt that our players play at a better level. The majority of them play at a better level.
And it would have been obviously in Ireland against Northern Ireland playoff had they qualified ahead of Ukraine, right?
Yeah, and like this tournament's over in England, so can you imagine what an opportunity it would have been? You know, how we probably would have been in the midst of it now and how accessible it would have been. And I don't know, as a result, I part of me is just a bit like, oh God, what a missed opportunity that is. And maybe you should step back and buy into the story of Northern Ireland and all. And like Ireland had their chance, they blew it, unfortunately. Like, you know, it was very much there for them and it didn't happen. But it just, when you're watching a tournament with teams that you know that Ireland are, on the basis of their performances since, that they're better than quite a few of these European teams that are in it, and they're not there, I don't know. I'd find it hard to actually engage with it to some degree, because you're thinking, this could have been something completely different.
Especially with the parallel universe of the World Cup qualifiers happening at the moment, getting a result against Sweden, getting 3 points against Finland, teams that...
They should be there. You know, they should be there, really. And watching all the other teams play, I don't know. You say it's motivational, and it possibly is, but like the tournament in England, like that would have been amazing.
Yeah, and that won't happen again for some time, even if they qualify for the next Euros. Just one other, a couple of other things actually we want to touch on this morning. We might get to the tennis and the golf in just a moment. Just on the GAA this weekend. Yeah. There's been a lot made of the promotion around games at the moment. Bernard Brogan was on Twitter yesterday talking about the fact that there was not really been a whole pile said in the build-up to Kerry against Dublin. There's been nothing said with regards to within the camps.
Is that the case? Is that absolutely the case? Yeah, there's been nothing.
Well, I know that Kerry declined to do media, that there was communication sent out to local journalists, and they said we won't be doing media before the All-Ireland semi-final. I'm not sure did Dublin make that sense of communication, or did they just say nothing? Either way, there hasn't been any real official media done before the semi-finals. We're seeing that maybe ticket sales aren't what you might expect for a Kerry Dublin semi-final. Like Paddy Andrews on the Football Pod earlier this week was saying that the 2013 game was the loudest he'd ever felt Croke Park. The stadium was shaking, physically shaking. There's going to be, I think, maybe 70,000 people there on Sunday. It's still a good turnout, and maybe more. Maybe it will go closer to 80 as the weekend progresses. But I would suspect a few years ago these tickets would have sold out, and there are a whole pile of other factors at play here, obviously with the cost of living and all that.
Yeah.
And there are the kind of when you look at the situation like the hurling, for example, last week only 40,000 and 52,000 people showing up for the hurling semi-finals, which was a poor turnout. I think it points to kind of like a wider malaise in terms of attendances. But that promotional point, is there something in that? Is there something in that idea that if your papers had kind of wall-to-wall coverage of quotes from managers and players this week, as boring as they would inevitably be, would it essentially create more interest in this weekend's games?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Bernard Brogan had those tweets yesterday. I think there's always a danger that, like two media people having a discussion about it can almost seem sort of self-serving in the sense of like, wouldn't it be great if they did more? And like the large swathes of the public are never going to agree with you in that, because they'd be like, well, typical media, well, like, what do you want? Like, you know, of course. Now this line of, they're amateur players and so on, they shouldn't have to do it. I mean, we do know that, like, there's obviously, there'd be elite inter-county players who enjoy various statuses in their life on account of their inter-county status, right? I don't think, like, the odd interview is going to be a massive imposition, although I know there's obviously an argument that maybe I see Paul Flynn getting involved and talking about maybe some degree of, like, should players be compensated for doing some of this thing? I don't know. Like, it's like, as someone who probably is very much casual in terms of how I sort of dip into the GAA and stuff, I kind of wonder, like, in one sense it never seemed to matter because the games were always sellouts, and now if you're getting to the stage now where you're telling me that for whatever reason the take-up has been slightly slower. I know there's this whole debate about the scheduling of the season, and maybe there's less time for, like, storylines to develop across the summer too. Like, if Armagh and Galway had played together the following week, after what had happened in that game, like, would there have been sort of more interest? Because you're like, okay, we know some more of these characters now. To me, some of the even characters involved in that spat, you're like, who are these people? Like, what is the story? Although I hear that Derry apparently are quite good, have been reasonably good in terms of their press interactions compared to others. But I do find it a little bit of an oddity, to the sense that there seems to be a complete paranoia around it. And I don't know, is it just become a cultural thing whereby, you're just convinced, well, no one else is doing it, so we shouldn't do it. We can't give the team some kind of edge because these games are like, there's such a build up around one or two particular games a year, and you can't leave anything to chance.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was a league type season where you were playing every week, does it become less of a sort of a threat? But it's very hard. Well, what's your perspective on it? Like, as someone who's sort of more into it, do you feel like your interest or your engagement is different because you hear less from the people involved?
Not really, to be honest. I think that if you're big into it, you'll find the coverage. I mean, there's I was really, really enjoyed listening to James and Paddy on the football pod this week. I think they spent an hour previewing Kerry Dublin this week, and that's the sort of stuff that you want to hear on game week, really. The soundbites from managers and players are, as I said, inevitably going to be boring and dull. But the thing is, when you have a press day like that, as you know yourself, they do tend to get placed on the front page or the back page. Like, you look at the Andy Farrell quotes that are leading the way in most of the papers this morning. They're not exactly box office, but it is the head coach of a team playing in a significant sporting event this weekend, so it's going to go close to your lead. I suspect that would have been the same thing. You would have had a back page ad for the weekend's games had Dessie Farrell or Jack O'Connor done a press briefing this week. And to be honest with you, before the Mayo game, the fact that Jack O'Connor did that really awkward press conversation, he had that awkward conversation with Tim Moynihan where he really just wouldn't commit on whether Clifford was available or not. Like, those are kind of actually the crapness of the interviews is sometimes part of the culture of GAA, the yera stuff when it comes to Kerry.
They're just there.
Yeah, and like it does add texture to the week. I'm not sure that would it sell any more tickets, but it is part of our enjoyment, like hearing what these managers have to say, hearing what the players have to say, even if it's dull. If you love that county or if you love that team, you're probably going to read every single word of it.
Yeah.
Just because it's David Clifford saying the boring stuff as opposed to somebody that you're not familiar with, I think you tend to read it. And I think it's more to do with like a fan's relationship with a team. It just adds a bit more of a different dimension to things. Like, I do think that the more significant thing over the last little while for ticket sales has just been the compressed nature of the season, compounded by the cost of living. And I think people have made the point that you're now trying to go to 3 championship games on one paycheck, for example, if your team is playing 3 championship games in a month, as opposed to like once a month as it would be a few years ago. And the outcome of that is fewer people showing up to games, potentially fewer euros going into the GAA coffers. And that's why I think the outcome of this will be that in the next couple of years, this idea of a split season won't be as dramatic, that championship and All-Ireland finals will probably go back to being taking place in August. And what they will say is that players have gone abroad, players have gone to America after getting knocked out of the championship, and counties aren't playing their county championships anyway, so they may as well just have the inter-county championship go till the end of the summer. So I think that's what the result of this will be. I think this could actually be the first and one of the last seasons where we have a July All-Ireland.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable to me. Again, sort of looking from the outside, I do find the scheduling a bit odd. I feel like I should make some kind of joke here, but just the Kerry fans aren't travelling because
exactly,
this is the standard thing, isn't it?
I can't believe you haven't done it already.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to get my quota in of something about Kerry this or that or whatever. But I in some ways though, I think what you say is true. Like sometimes in the media, then people will go, well, they never say anything in these interviews anyway, and there's like this sort of sniffy tone to it. Well, they say nothing, but some people do like to read that stuff. People forget, as you said, sometimes you might think that everyone wants to read the big one-on-one sit down, but sometimes people just like to hear.
They just want to hear their hero
people
talk.
From there say something, and there is actually always a room for that. But I also think as well the news cycle now is a lot more immediate as well, in the sense that it's actually hard to do a long build up to a game with lots of different voices from the camp across the week. I think people sort of I assume this is coming from the point that there have been days this week, there's probably been news bulletins where there's been nothing on these games.
Yeah, I would say the majority of them, because what do you say? I presume it's the way it's always been is that you have fresh audio from one of the camps.
That's been saved, and it's been done in a group thing, and it's sort of piecemealed out across the week. And I've been part of those around, say, Ireland internationals. We have a player for this day and player for that day and a player for the other day. But I also think it's when the games themselves are still attracting pretty significant attendances, even if they're not quite where they were. You'd assume it might well be the case that even the buzz of the weekend and the atmosphere around the city will mean presumably
a few more
will come closer to Sunday. It will happen, and they seem to think there'll be a good crowd tomorrow at the Tailteann Cup game as well too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the cycle of everything, and this is just my own experience in sports media, is a bit of a different point. There used to be like a big build up to, say, Ireland games and a big fallout afterwards, but it just seems to be a lot shorter because I think people tend to move on to the next thing very quickly. You know, like next week you'll have the Open, say, in golf or something, and you'll have a Dublin Kerry fallout or the All-Ireland fallout, but people just tend to like dwell on stuff a lot less now than they used to. That's just my opinion of it, from sort of working in a paper every day and the news list and how it happens. Things don't seem to have as protracted a build-up, and then afterwards people move on from it fairly quickly. And maybe there was an old school way of, you would have interviews all the way through the week from the various protagonists for the camps, but now it just seems to creep up on people a bit more. And yeah, I do think that the players should be less, you know, the culture of the management camp should be less sort of inclined towards suspicion and paranoia, but they have, maybe there are 2-3 big games where they just feel like, oh, this could be the 1% that kills us here. I'll say something daft.
And it should come from the top, where teams are compelled to at least just do some sort of briefing before each game.
Just get it out of the way.
They will do it for the final. Like, I assume they will do it for the final, because I know Kilkenny have already got their media day done, and you'll probably have heard more of Brian Cody this week than you'll have heard of Jack O'Connor or Desi Farrell, which is a little bit mad. Yeah. Even though that game is next week, but that's just the way it is, and I can see it from their perspective too. If you're not compelled to do it, why would you do it? It is not their responsibility to be promoting the games. It is their responsibility to win the game, and unfortunately they feel that there is a connection between the information you put out there and your chances of winning the game, especially with the two big fitness doubts that have been just the topic of WhatsApp rumour for weeks and weeks now.
That's another weird cultural thing as well, but you have to have a real tight knit camp to be able to sustain this mystery of, like, someone has a hairline fracture, but what part of the body might this be in, if this is the case?
if there is a hairline fracture.
If there is even one at all.
Yeah.
And I do find that a little bit mystifying, but it's in some ways it speaks to the tightness that they can maintain it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is at 7:52. You're with us here on OTB AM. Let's just tell you what's coming up over the next little while. Karl McKaigue is on standby. We'll get to him in just a second. Niamh, Briggs and Gordon Darcy will be with us after 8 o'clock to look ahead to the second test of Ireland's tour to New Zealand. The sports page is coming your way at 8:35, and then our GAA quick picks looking ahead to the 3 games this weekend at 10 to 9. The crappy quiz at 9:10, and then Thursday Night Football with John Giles is being played out at 9:30. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And Karl McKaigue, Derry footballer, is with us on the line. Karl, you're welcome back to the show. How are you getting on?
Not too bad. Good morning, lads.
In terms of hype, we've just been chatting about maybe a bit of a muted build-up, certainly from the camps when it comes to Kerry and Dublin. I presume the hype has gone to a whole other level post the Clare game in Derry.
Oh, definitely. You know, anywhere you drive through in Derry at the minute, you see the red and white button everywhere. You see kids running about with their Derry tops on. I know I've just read a lot of things on Twitter about this whole sort of, you know, low-key build-up to Ireland semi-finals. It certainly doesn't feel that way up here, but I sort of get the lads' point too, that the media side of things has maybe been shut down a wee bit. But up in Derry here, we're very much looking forward to it, and everyone's very excited. I
found that Derry have been really open this year. Like, I mean, even just chatting to your brother in the aftermath of the Ulster final, like, I mean, just there's real honesty from some of the stuff he says. The same kind of goes for Rory Gallagher. Like, even, like, I mean, he is the inter-county manager that's been most visible this week when it comes to quotes, Rory Gallagher. That there doesn't seem to be this paranoia yet anyway in Derry.
No, definitely not. And to be fair to Rory, you know, he's saying things in interviews that he would say within the team meetings. He's been completely upfront. I think that just comes from a big confidence he has in his playing group. So he's not afraid to go out there and maybe put a wee bit of pressure on his players by calling it as he sees it.
You were pretty bullish with us on the show last time you were on before the Clare game. You were right to be so, because they absolutely hammered them. Was there anything about that performance at all that surprised you, or did you see anything new that day?
No, not really. I didn't think Derry maybe would have went as offensive in terms of pressing the kick out with, you know, nearly every man forward. But at the same time, I expected it to be a comfortable enough one. Did I expect it to be 5 goals? No, but I did think maybe 2 or 3. So you overall wasn't surprised by it, and I think Derry actually have a wee bit more on them. Even, you know, they scored 5 goals. So
that offensive press wasn't something that we saw in the Ulster Championship. This was a new development when they came up against Clare.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I definitely. And I think, you know, Rory obviously planned before the game. He's seen that there was probably an area that you could be targeted with Clare. With Donegal, obviously, with Sean Patton and nets, you can get caught over the top with that aggressive press. So he probably studied the Clare defence and goalkeeper and thought there's a chance to really go to town and maybe get a bit of early pressure on.
It seems that they've kind of gone into that situation of being Ulster champions and wearing that crown pretty lightly. Then it wasn't anything that bogged them down. It was like, right, we've got our tails up here. We are the best in Ulster coming into to a team against a Munster team, and just feeling that confidence and feeling that kind of good sense of arrogance that they can go and kill them. Like that's what it says to me about that tactical approach in the quarter-final.
Definitely, and Rory has everybody at the minute completely backing themselves, so there's ultimate confidence in what they were doing for that game. Yes, it was probably leaving a wee bit more space at the back than they have maybe against Donegal or Monaghan or Tyrone, but at the same time they went in for the kill. The press led to a few goals, and that more or less killed the game very early.
Do you speak to Chrissy in weeks like this? Do you have conversations? Do you try and avoid each other, or how does that work?
Probably nothing different than usual week. I wouldn't be sort of asking what's going on in camp. I just don't think that's probably my business at the minute. But at the same time, you have a fair idea how things are going. You get good vibes from that things are going well in training, that they're well prepared, and I definitely expect them to be very competitive with Galway. I don't think it'll be much in it either way, but I think they're in a good place going into it. Who
do you think he's going to mark on Saturday?
Don't know. Sheahan Walsh tends to play quite far out. I don't know if that's something that would maybe suit Christopher as well. He tends to be the closest man to goal most of this year, so that leaves your pick between probably Comer and Finnerty. Both of them are playing pretty well, so regardless of who's on, things in for a tough enough day.
Could he mark Walsh? Like I get the point absolutely that he always marks the guy closest to goal, but does his man marking style allow him to kind of take on a player who will drop into those deep pockets and into those pockets probably closer to the sideline at times?
Probably, to be fair, like he's played a lot of his under-county career in the half-back lines, or half-back, even a few games in midfield, so he'll be comfortable out the pitch, be comfortable sort of close to the 21-13. So I think regardless of what job he's given, he'll be happy enough to do it.
When it comes to some of those Derry forwards, I think that the fashion in which they dismantled Clare was pretty interesting, and I guess you could touch on it there. You were a little bit surprised by the 5 goals yourself. Like Shane McGuigan's performance was unreal. Like he's been brilliant for the last couple of years for Derry ever since he's kind of broken through, and I'm not sure that people kind of appreciate just how good he was until that quarter final. I know people in Derry probably knew for a long time. So what's been your experience of him up close in training and some of the things that you've seen him do over the last, I guess, few years?
He's definitely brought his game to a different level. Like Sheahan would have broke onto our club team as a minor in 2015. I think his debut might have been an Ulster club game against Scotstown, which we lost, but he came on and scored a few points. He's a brilliant player. He's brought his physicality to a new level. He's one of the fittest and strongest players on the panel at this point in time, but the amount of work he puts in behind the scenes is unbelievable. You always see him in the gym, whether it be stretching or S&C work, hydrating well. He just takes ultimate care of his body. He just wants to be a top-level inter-county footballer. Like at the minute, he's without doubt Derry's best forward and probably one of the best forwards in the country, but still that won't be enough for him. He'll want to kick on to that next level, probably up to where Con O'Callaghan and David Clifford are, and I think he's definitely capable of getting to that point.
Is that something that a player like him thinks about and talks about and kind of has that level in his head where those names get mentioned, where he can say to himself, I want to be as good as a Clifford or as an O'Callaghan?
He probably wouldn't outwardly say it, but just from his self-confidence and how much he puts into it, he more than expects himself to get to that level. And as I say, you're starting to see it now. I think it was 1-8 the last game. He probably could have finished with maybe 2-12. He had a few wides he had in the first half and even a goal chance in the second half. So he's playing unbelievably well. There's more in him. Derry are going to need it on Saturday if they are to win. But I definitely expect him to have a big game.
What's your take on that then? How far is he off that level off the two lads?
I suppose it's maybe a wee bit hard to compare because Derry haven't been playing Division 1. To be fair to Kerry and Dublin, they've been doing it year in, year out, Championship and League within Division 1 as well. So, I think when he's playing at that level, you see him up against the Tyrones and the Donegals and the Dublins and Kerrys each year and Mayos, that he can actually perform against them big teams, and I think he's just waiting for that opportunity.
Have you gone up against him in training?
Oh, aye, many's the time. Definitely was a lot easier mark back around 2015-16 when he broke onto the squad. Nowadays he's a different animal. You nearly need 2 or 3 men beside you to try and keep him under wraps, but he's a nightmare to mark in training.
What can you do to stop him?
Well, probably like anything, and any big player in the inter-county game at the minute, you have to have a good defensive structure around you, and then you have to be on your game yourself. So you're never going to mark him one-on-one inside 50 yards, because once he gets the ball, it's ball in the hand. you're going to concede a point or a goal. So it's more about trying to get the setup right around you, try and get the double ups, and trying to limit him just to sort of peripheral sort of positions and where he has to go back out the pitch as opposed to running at you.
You talk about his physical transformation over the last few years. That seems to have been a common enough thread under Rory Gallagher, certainly post-COVID. Can you take us back to the moment that started and the moment that became a real focus for this team, the physical aspect?
I was really honed in on, I think, whenever we lost to Armagh up in Celtic Park. Armagh were very physically developed at that point in time. You can see the work that Kieran McGeeney had done with them. Derry were definitely flagging behind in that avenue. And I suppose, being good physically is not going to guarantee winning anything, but you're definitely not going to win anything without that. So I think, to get to that next point in time, there had been a serious amount of work done. You're talking about committing to S&C probably 3-4 times a week over the space of maybe 18 months to really bridge that gap. And to be fair to Derry and Peter Hughes, the S&C coach, they've done that. They've bridged that gap now. And I think that gives them a chance then to use their football to try and get to that very top level.
That Derry Armagh match, am I right in saying that's the game in 2020 where you lose by 2 points?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessarily you were getting blown out of the water. You'd kind of come up against a team that had, I guess, just got promoted to Division 1, and there was a slight enough margin, but it feels that the improvement has been not slight, it's been a significant improvement as a result of that S&C programme.
Definitely, and to be fair, from a football point of view as well, Derry have went to the next level. That night I thought 2 points might have been a wee bit flattering to Derry. I thought Armagh were probably the better team for the vast majority of that game. And Rory would say it himself, he wasn't happy about how that performance was. He didn't even expect maybe to win. I think he said that's the first time with any team he ever said that. So there has been untold improvements both in physicality and football ability over that sort of time frame from 2020. And that's there to be seen now because Derry aren't only just competing with teams, they're actually beating them.
So what specifically changed then? What was different about the programme that was brought in after 2020?
With regards to the S&C?
Yeah,
so I suppose it's, just maybe your 2 times a week that you were doing maybe unsupervised. Until then, when Peter came in, there was a lot of collective sessions. If you want to do even more sessions at your own home gym or club gym, Peter could facilitate that. 2 or 3 years could go up to the one gym and he'll take you for an extra session. So probably you're talking about 4, sometimes 5 sessions per week of S&C over that period of time. So obviously that's going to make a huge change to your body.
Yeah, for sure. When did you start seeing the results of it?
It probably just wasn't immediate. It's not only about trying to bulk up and get a wee bit of size on. It's your fitness scores is what you can perform in the power test. And Peter's very diligent with all that. He has all the proper gadgets in to measure that. And you could just see over a period of time the numbers were going up. Lads were taking confidence from it. And ultimately then I think that feeds into your playing performance because if you're confident in your body, you'll start being able to do more on the pitch with your skills.
And it feels like it's almost been not a happy coincidence. It's actually probably been meticulously planned out. It feels that it fits in perfectly with the Rory Gallagher style of play and this Derry identity that even earlier in the year when I was watching some of your league games, like the counter-attacking pace was blistering and you were just thinking, God, when this actually gets to the summer, Derry could be unstoppable. Like that was a very optimistic point of view, but it certainly is manifested that way, and that style of play wouldn't be possible if that hard work in the gym wasn't done over the last couple of winters.
Definitely not, and I suppose you still have to have the raw athleticism of players there, like likes of Gareth McKinless and Conor Glass and Brendan Rodgers. These lads are unbelievable athletes in the very top percentile in the country, capable of doing it with any other player. So you have to have that sort of raw player to work with. But I say the fact that Peter's put so much work into them, and obviously Rory with the coach, and it's all sort of coming together at the right time, and they're definitely very well suited to the firm sod of Croke Park.
Can I ask you about another specific forward for Derry? We kind of got to mention Benny Heron. I mean, the Benny Heron, the GOAT page on Twitter has garnered a lot of attention. Jay from the In-Betweeners sending a good look Benny cameo during the week. 230,000 views and counting on Twitter at the moment. I mean, you're surely not going to disagree with that he is the greatest of all time, Karl?
No, definitely not. To be fair to Benny, he's been about a long time. He keeps plugging away year after year. He's been an unbelievable servant to his club on the screen. But to be fair, this year he's found a new level. I think that's probably just the extra work that Rory has maybe brought onto him. What Benny will offer the team is complete, unselfish play. You see him the first man sprinting back to offer up that first line of their defence. But at the same time now he's getting them chances for goal. He's panning them nearly every single time. he's been remarkable this year. He has to be probably in a run for an All-Star at this point. And to be fair, it's good to see for Benny because he's a huge work ethic. He puts a lot of work into his game. And now at the age of maybe 31, he's only getting his rewards, so fair play to him.
Does he know that this page exists?
Oh, I'm sure he's been made well aware of it. I don't know actually who's run the page. It's sort of an idea. It's maybe some of the young lads from his club in Ballinascreen. But I'm sure he's aware, but just wants to play it down.
One other question I had is, how are you getting on this year, Karl? There's no chance that if Derry make an All-Ireland final, you'll be back in training or anything, is there?
No chance at all, unfortunately, no.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't be on with us this morning if there was even half a chance, I suspect.
No, not a chance.
What's going to happen tomorrow?
I fancy probably a similar game to the Ulster final against Donegal. I don't think it's going to be just as aggressive as it was against Clare. It'll be cagey build-ups on both sides. I think, I probably in my head would have preferred Armagh to get through that game against Galway because I think Armagh's style of play would probably suit Derry a wee bit more. They're more open, they tend to kick a bit, and that gives you more chances to counter. Galway probably play quite similar to Derry in many ways. They're more measured. They'll go through the hands quite a bit. So I think this could be a wee bit cagey and a wee bit of a stalemate at times, but I still think there'll be a lot of quality on show. But I think, either way, it'll be a few points in it, but I do think Derry just have enough to beat them.
Do you think that Derry are going to devise a game plan to test the Galway keeper under the high ball? It feels like a very obvious thing to take from the Armagh game, but it also feels it would be a bit of a movement away from the Rory Gallagher style. So it's a tricky one.
That is a tricky one, and if you lump the first 2 or 3 balls and you don't get anything out of it, you think, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to cough up possession in a very important game. And to be fair, I don't think the Galway sort of full backline defence is as bad under the high ball as it showed probably in that Armagh game. I think that was a wee bit of a freak, to be fair to them. So, if Derry were to start aimlessly landing balls into the square, I don't think it would really help them. Maybe once in each half would be plenty, and if you get anything out of it, you do, and if you don't, you don't. But I certainly wouldn't be changing Derry style of play to try and go for that wee error in the Galway defence.
It's the second Galway game now where it's really, really hard to call for sure who is going to win it. Are you predicting that Derry will win tomorrow?
I think by a few points. I fancy Galway. I said to some of my friends back home that I fancy Galway maybe by 5 or 6 against Armagh, and for a long time that was looking right. And I think, to be fair, they were probably about a 5 or 6 better team. Them 3 goals wasn't really a fair reflection of how well Galway played for long parts of that game. So tomorrow I think it's going to be really tight. I think it might even take extra time to separate the two sides, but I do think Derry just have enough to get in the right side of it.
Is Chrissy taking a penalty if it goes there?
I would very much doubt that. Aye.
Probably have enough in the forwards. The other game, Karl, I just want to get your take quickly on it. Who would Derry rather play in the final if they got there?
Pick your poison. It's hard to know. I suppose a lot depends on whether Con O'Callaghan's playing and what sort of shape he is in if he is playing. But I do fancy Kerry to get through that game. I stayed for the Cork and Dublin game after the Derry game there a few weeks ago, and I wasn't really impressed by how Dublin were defending. They were leaving Hurley and Sherlock 2-on-2 inside about 60 yards of space, and Cork kicked every ball in. A lot of them were sticking. Some of them were going over the bar. If they had took some more chances, Cork actually could have been going into half-time leading. And if they do that against Kerry with Clifford and Guinea and Paddy Clifford as well, I think they could leave themselves open for a big concession. So unless Dublin maybe change things a wee bit at the back and they get O'Callaghan back into the mix, I think Kerry will probably edge that game.
Right, okay. So what would you do if you could make a change to that Dublin defence then to shore things up?
I think you just have to try and generate a +1 from somewhere. You can't leave 50 yards in front of some of the best forwards in the country. If you do it even against average forwards, they're still probably going to get a fair few points off you. So if you're doing it against Kerry, it's not going to work. And we've seen how Kerry transition this year. They do kick if it's on. And if Dublin want to leave that space in Croke Park, Kerry will more than happy kick it in. And I think that could be the one of the game for them. But I don't expect Dublin just to be as sort of nonchalant in defence. I think they'll probably try and get, I don't know, whether it be Cooper or somebody back into the hole to plug that space in front of Clifford. But if they do that, then I think it should be very tight. And again, it might swing on whether Con O'Callaghan's playing or not.
Okay. If he is playing, is that Dublin to win?
He certainly probably does edge it that way. He's a massively important player for them. I think a lot was made in the last game against a Cork that they couldn't really create any goal chances. If Con's in, they looked like scoring goals every single game. So he's a vitally important player for them. He's obviously probably top 2 players in the country, so they need him playing and need him fit.
Karl, great stuff this morning. Thanks a million for being with us.
No problem at all.
That's Karl McKaigue, Derry footballer. Got injured obviously at the start of the year, brother of Chrissy as well. So really interesting game tomorrow. Both games very, very tough to call, it seems. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're going to be talking rugby next with Niamh, Briggs and Gordon Darcy.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This summer we're bringing you double Koi gig.
For me, she's the best English centre-back. Play your best players in their best position. I don't think the captain is droppable, particularly after making the statement of dropping Steph Houghton. You'd love to see someone like McGill pop up with a goal up top and just set the place on fire. You'd love to see a fairy tale story.
For the best insight and analysis from this summer's Euros, subscribe to the Koi Gig pod on the OTB Sports app now.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match, because somewhere out there there's someone for you, and GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
11 minutes past 8, you're very welcome back. It is time to look ahead to the second test of Ireland's tour to New Zealand tomorrow morning. They're in Dunedin. Kick-off is at 8:05 Irish time tomorrow morning. Delighted to welcome Niamh, Briggs and Gordon Darcy to the show. Good morning, folks. Gordon, I might just start with yourself. What's the headspace like before a second test after you've been beaten, on the scoreline at least, comfortably in the first test? Is there this sense of opportunity that things can only get better?
Yeah, I think it's quite a hard one, isn't it? Because we'll get a good view of that this weekend. Is my line bad now? Is it?
You can
hear me fine.
Crystal clear to me, Gordon.
No, it's fine. I'm getting a call back in my ear. Yeah, like you're kind of looking back at the times we played in New Zealand, and there has been good performances in the second test, but realistically, history usually is the first test is that best opportunity to get a win over, or to try and get at least performance against New Zealand. I think we'll get a very good insight into how the players are in the first 5 minutes, and that's not trying to avoid the question, but it's almost exactly the same team, and that team struggled in the power play piece against New Zealand, and I suppose we're wheeling the same team out and looking for a different result. It feels it might be a stretch. What
other changes would you have made?
I think there was an opportunity to freshen things up. I think I'm a huge fan of Eoin Dan. I think he's been a brilliant player this season, but his last 3 or 4 games he probably hasn't been playing to his high standards. And I think Gavin Coombs is probably one of the few players to come out of the Maori game with a little bit of credit. I think he definitely could have offered something there. And again, Bundy, should there have been space made in the centre for him? I don't think Gary Ringrose had his best game. But you're sticking with the mainstay, and I think there's not that one of the things I think is very obvious and is there isn't that much room for selection. We know that with the size of squad they brought, and without trying to avoid it, the quality that is or isn't there. So there was probably 2 or 3 more places they could have selected, and the fact they didn't, is surprising, I think.
Niamh, good morning to you. Would you go along with that? The idea that he's been conservative in terms of his possible changes this week?
Look, I think he spoke during the week about giving opportunities to players that didn't probably have their best game. He openly said there was definitely issues in that game and players didn't play that well. And I think when you're a player and you're afforded a second opportunity, you kind of feel like that that the likes of Andy Farrell and his coaching could have that confidence in you, and maybe it spurs on a different performance. And I think we've definitely got to see something different. My biggest worry was that when Johnny Sexton went off, we seemed to lose our way a lot, and it's got to be a case that I think we've got to start breathing something in there that if he isn't playing and if Joey isn't that type of player that's going to, direct play around, that somebody else takes control of that. And I just didn't think we saw that last weekend.
If we leave the concussion issue to the side, would you have liked to have seen a change at 10 this weekend then, Niamh?
No, not particularly, because I think that Johnny Sexton is the best 10, and I think when you go down to New Zealand, you go down with a view to playing your best team every week, because that's how it's so difficult down there. We saw it last weekend. I think New Zealand's, I actually thought Ireland played really, really well for the first 25, 30 minutes, but it's New Zealand's ability to be so clinical after mistakes. And I think you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe if we can start as well as we did and try and fix those mistakes or not give them easy access into our half, then, we might have a better opportunity. Like New Zealand had 8 entries into Ireland's 22 last weekend and scored 6 tries. Phenomenal accuracy. So I think if you can try and manipulate the play a small bit and try and deny them that easy access through your own mistakes, then you're making life difficult for them.
Gordon, it's hard to find kind of new ways of talking about the Sexton conundrum for Ireland, because we've been talking about it for so long in terms of trying to find a successor, trying to find a situation that will suit Ireland at the next World Cup. Where do you currently stand on that? Is it just essentially squeezing the Johnny Sexton situation until it eventually runs out, or how would you play it if you were Andy Farrell?
I think there's a fine balance, and I understand would need the opportunity coming into this, but there's very few games left to figure out if players are at a standard that you want to be at. If you want a World Cup to be, the ultimate judgment piece on it. So, Harry Byrne, it couldn't be any more Harry Byrne that he arrives in and gets injured in the first week that he's there. So, I'm not sure, and that all seeps into the coach's mindset. They're going if we pick this guy, can we actually, is he going to finish a game, let alone a training session? So I think he's starting to drift in their selection policy, and I do think on recent performance, Joey has all the potential in the world, but on recent performances you're starting to wonder, is he going to be the option at 10 as well? So I think a guy, Kieran Frawley, to me, I think is somebody who could bolt over the next 12 months and maybe force himself into that utility spot as a 10, 12 playmaker. Because one of the things that was also very clear at the weekend was if Johnny's not there and it's just Joey, we need a second playmaker. Or you need that option around it. I know the game plan is kind of designed to remove that kind of dependency on Johnny. But when he's not there, it really doesn't click in the same way. So someone like Kieran Frawley, who's a natural ball player, a natural carrier, with he creates space for other players. He may inadvertently be the solution. Well,
we were having this conversation with Ronan O'Gara last week, and he was saying that Frawley could very well be that option. The only issue is that how does he get his reps at number 10? Does there need to be kind of an overarching decision made on him being the next guy up at 10, Gordon, in terms of his Leinster game plan? I think it's going to happen naturally enough in Leinster. If Harry keeps getting injured, they're going to start having to look at position, and maybe he forces the issue as well and says, listen, you know what, I started as a 10, did my time at 12, but yeah, I want to go head to head with Ross and Harry for this. What do you make of that conversation, Niamh? Is that do you see the same trajectory for Kieran Frawley?
Yeah, look, I've been a huge fan of him for a long time. I think he's an incredibly good player, and I think that he is the perfect type of player that you'd want in your matchday squad because he covers an array of positions. But Gordon just hit the nail on the head there, and you did as well in relation to where is he going to get those reps. You've got to be very careful next year. Johnny Sexton's obviously going to be, minded exceptionally well that he's peaking for, Six Nations and peaking for World Cup, and, therefore he'll have a set amount of games. But then if you're Ross Byrne, Kieran Frawley doesn't, if Ross Byrne is starting for Leinster, Kieran Frawley, is down that pecking order again. So Leinster don't see him clearly as the number 210. So that's a really difficult thing for him. He's very much in that balance. But for me, I just think he's an exceptionally good player. I'd have loved to have seen him involved in 23 this weekend, to be honest. But I just do think he offers you something really good. Very good taking the ball to the line, but also exceptionally good footwork in and around that tight area, which is what you probably need tomorrow. So yeah, look, I do think there has to be a way we can try and force him in and put him under pressure in situations where we're thinking, okay, he's ready for that international step, because to be honest, at the moment, we don't really know.
And there's also, there's just as jumping in on that, there's also something to happen in Munster as well. So they need to figure out what the pecking order is. And that's something Johan van Graan never figured out in Munster. So there's still one of 3 backup out halves in Munster could come through in the next 12 months if they get, as you say, that game time and that game reps done to the player who deserves it. Like Jack Crowley could. You never know, he could come through. Ben Healy could overtake Joey Carberry. There is still potential out there, because the current there is no clear pecking order in the current group, so there's still plenty of room for movement, I think.
And I guess the question to follow up with that, Gordon, is 15 months enough time for a satisfying outcome to happen here?
Yeah, like listen, there's you can, if you're good enough, you'll have your first test and it'll be rabbit in the headlight stuff, depending on who you start at, and you just go, oh, actually, this is quite a big step up. But if you're good enough, you adjust to the pace, and you're going to have good players all around you, playing with Gibson Park, playing on the front foot. If you're good enough at 10, and Ireland play the way, win their set piece, which we know is paramount to where they're going, you're a good decision maker flat at the line. The Irish, you will swim rather than sink in that team. You just need to get the opportunity. That's what I think kind of Niamh and I are kind of saying, Ciara Frawley would do really, really well in that first team.
This is the opportunity, though, isn't it? Maybe not this weekend, well, obviously not this weekend, but the final test.
But if we win this weekend, it's like, listen, we'll judge this very harshly, obviously, off the back of it. But like, if we don't win this week and you make a raft of changes next week, it's not the solution.
No, but it's
when you're making selections based on the reactive selections, it will feel very it'll feel very disjointed, I think, at that stage.
It wouldn't even be so much, I'm not suggesting like a raft of changes, it's just about the situation at 10, like playing beside Gibson Park, playing behind your first choice pack. Like there won't be too many more opportunities that are as good as playing away against the All Blacks, right? You can pick that up. Sorry, go for it, Niamh.
Sorry, look, you're completely right, but I do think it all depends on this result this weekend. I think if Ireland win that game, they go into a test series decider, and you're thinking there's no way there's going to be many changes, unfortunately. But if there isn't, then 100%. But I still think that they need to give Joey that time too, and there's the fine balance. There's a clear, in my mind, there's a clear definition that Johnny's number 1 and Joey's number 2, and everything else comes in after it. And at this point in time, and Joey needs more reps at that level. I think Ronan O'Gara hit the nail on the head on Sky Sports last weekend to say that he's a very good and exceptionally good rugby player, but is he an exceptionally good 10? I think that's where the conundrum with Joey lies at the moment. So do you decide, okay, he could be our utility back in terms of our second playmaker from a 15 position, and let's try and move Ciara Frawley into that 10-12 position. I don't know, that's definitely way above my pay grade, but I think at the moment it's very clear and obvious to me that that Joey is their second 10, and if there's going to be a change at that position next weekend, I'd imagine it'll be him starting there.
Gordon, I know we need to let you go in just a couple of minutes. Just on the All Blacks, it's interesting looking at their team this week. Ronan O'Gara saying in the Irish Examiner that Whitelock is a 10 to 15 point difference maker. Do you put him down as that big a loss for them this weekend as well?
Potentially, yeah. I think it would give, because I was wondering how they were going to solve the lineout, because obviously the calling aspect from James Ryan doesn't seem to be coming massively natural to him, and that Dan Sheahan is only a recent convert into hookers. So I think it does give them a massive opportunity to win quality possession and for players to be banking on it. I think that's a huge turn for Ireland, because they can be a little bit more creative, they can get a little bit of movement, they can get some tempo into it, and they can just, if they win their ball, then anything can happen. So when New Zealand competed, and we watched the game back, when New Zealand competed at our line-out, like, we really struggled. We really did, and he's a key driver in that.
What do you expect will happen tomorrow, Gordon?
I'm just going to shake my magic 8 ball here. I'm just worried with the form of key players coming in and their ability to last, particularly in the tight 5 against this. And I think New Zealand know how the good footprint to stop Ireland. I think we will be really competitive again for 40, 50, 60 minutes, but I'm not sure we're in a position at the moment to be able to stop that kind of 10 to 14 minute spell that New Zealand are so capable of scoring that 3-4 tries on the bounce that just blow teams away.
Gordon, thanks a million for being with us this morning. Take care.
Thanks a million, guys. Niamh, good to see you. Catch you up here.
Niamh, we'll just pick things up there. In terms of when you analyse Saturday last week, and you've touched on this already, the sort of, I guess, the ruthless efficiency of the All Blacks, and then maybe some of the inefficiency from Ireland in attack, those near misses. Do you cling to those as like instances of hope, or does that actually suggest to you that this is going to be the trend throughout the entire series?
No, I definitely think them instances of hope. They're quite easy fixes. I think in terms of that efficiency in the 22, I think Ireland, I think I read somewhere yesterday that they had 12 entries and they came away with 3 tries, and it was an unfortunate one with Joey obviously and Van der Fleer, and so there was definitely opportunities. And I think that if you're Andy Farrell and Paul O'Connell and these guys, you're putting that on the screen and you're saying, look, we've had a lot of entries in. This is our ability to get there. We can do it. So we minimise these mistakes, or we look at changing up a power play within that zone. Then there's space, and there was a clear picture while they were continuing to pick and jam around the goalposts, and Gary Ringrose is in acres of space on the edge. You're just looking at one quick thinking flash, like Gibson Park's quick flat pass, or like even a flat kick, and that's another score. And I do think that there was opportunities there that they left behind completely and utterly, in terms of, I understand that their set piece caused issues, the scrum and the line out, but I do think that if you're looking at them objectively and you're trying to build confidence within that group, you're telling them, okay, look, we've become more efficient in these areas, and scores will come.
And I guess that probably explains some of the team selection as well this weekend. It is backing them to get it right this weekend. I hate to be, a glass half empty with this next point, but the outcome this weekend is really important in that context. Like if they have a similar enough scoreline after being backed midweek, that probably puts them in a pretty difficult position going into Test 3, and even, I guess, the long-term confidence of this team.
Yeah, look, I think it's very difficult in terms of, and very different in relation to that confidence thing. We speak all the time about how difficult it is to win down there, and of course it is, because you've got to remember this side of the world, they're at the end of a very, very long season. And when New Zealand come to Ireland in November, they're at an incredibly long season. So it's really difficult to gauge until you actually get to a World Cup. And I think that they won't read a huge amount into the fact that if they, results or whatever it is after the end of these 3 tests, I think it'll be more a case that, okay, we've set pointers out in terms of points of difference in relation to getting guys international experience, getting guys experience in camp. And you find out very quickly of who are those that are good in around that environment, who can catch up quickly, who's very coachable, and then with a viewpoint that, okay, we can take these guys and improve in relation to the World Cup next year. And I think while the here and now is really important, I actually do think it's what's coming down the line for the next World Cup. That's probably where they have one eye on in relation to this group and where they're going. So
it can be a productive tour even if you do lose all 3 games. It is possible to take positives from it, even if that's the scenario.
Yeah, I 100% think it is. I think that, look, it's very difficult. You want to go down to New Zealand, you want to win, you want to try and create history, because you've never won an away test down there, and you can go and do that. Imagine the confidence and the off season for these players. But also, you listen to the players after the game and during the week, and for me, I thought it was a different kind of type of interview in relation to, yeah, look, we lost. There are definitely areas that we can fix, but we also know that we can be way better, and we also know that we played really well for that first 25, 30 minutes. And a lot of these players wouldn't have been in a position where, if you make a mistake, one small mistake in the URC or Champions Cup, it can be covered up very quickly. At this level in New Zealand, this ruthless nature that they have, you drop a ball, you have a loose kick, their ability to score straight away off that, which we saw last weekend, is the best in the world, and it's what makes them so good. So I think you're going in this weekend with a viewpoint to try and not kick away possession loosely, to hold on to the ball more, to be more efficient in and around your set piece and that breakdown. And if at the end of the day the result per se doesn't go, but you've got a good performance, then that's a win, I think, because of where they are in their seasons.
And Andy Farrell's thing this week has been about the stomach for the fight. He says we'll see if we'll have the stomach for the pressure. That was his line this week. He's laid down that marker in the past, and it seems that the team has responded pretty well to whenever he's spoken about that. It is interesting though that is the challenge that their head coach is laying down in public for them this week, just to see if they have the bottle for a second test in New Zealand after that defeat last week. How does a team respond to that, Niamh, when their head coach is saying stuff like that?
Yeah, look, I thought it was really interesting before the tour. He said in an interview that we'll see who can, we'll know very quickly who can live at this level and who can't within his own playing. I thought that was very interesting, and I thought it was really good, very honest to say it, because as a player, you know exactly what the coach is thinking. And this week it's no different. I think he's completely right. I think it's, at times in the past you've lost the first test having played well in patches or made huge amount of mistakes, and then we've been in positions where we've got annihilated the following week and come back and played well in the third test. It's that ability to, and this is what it is, it's a World Cup prep almost. It's that ability to churn out performances week after week and to be able to put good games and good moments together, 3 weeks in a row, to get that emotional pitch, to be able to be mentally in there 7 days, every 7 days, because you get really high highs and you get really low lows, but it's that ability to be able to keep them in an even keel. And I know they spoke this week about, the work that Gary Keegan's doing with them and having that balance, that they're, not getting too down in relation to moments of that match and the result last week, but also not getting too high, if they go and get a win. So I think that's the most important thing. It's their ability to, if they have an issue in the first or second game in their group stage in the World Cup, that they have the ability to bounce back. I think that's what he's looking for.
Because it did seem maybe at the last World Cup that once the defeat to Japan happened, kind of the wheels came off a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit harsh. Maybe it was like they were never going to beat New Zealand that year anyway, but it did feel that maybe that got under the skin a little bit. So do you feel that they're a little bit better equipped at the moment to deal with those setbacks?
Genuinely, I don't know, because they've been, very efficient in the Six Nations over the last couple of seasons, and so this is the test, and this is what he's talking about. Andy Farrell is saying to whether we have that stomach, whether we have the ability to bounce back, whether we have the ability to be able to come off that pitch last weekend and be very, very disappointed, but to be able to turn up 7 days later and be very much in the zone. It's a very difficult thing to do for a player, but that's what he's looking for in relation to what's coming down the line. And I think they show up tomorrow. Players show up tomorrow and they play. That's a ticket almost to the plane to the World Cup, and so yeah, look, it is a very difficult thing to do, but and we don't know. It's like talking about players that we haven't seen before. Strength and depth in international rugby. There's nowhere like New Zealand to go and try and test the player internationally, but just to say, should we throw them in? We generally don't know, because we don't know if they're capable of that ceiling. So, look, I think that's definitely the conundrum for Andrew Farrell and his coaching ticket.
Alan Quinlan was making the point yesterday that if Ireland are in the game come the hour mark tomorrow, that they have every chance of winning it, and he thinks that they will win it if they're in that position. So what do Ireland need to do to get to that point, at least, Niamh, of being in a contest after an hour?
Yeah, look, I think they talked this week about, the set piece. Paul Conn spoke about the areas that they need to work on. I think Gordon made a good point in relation to, the line out and making it more efficient. We asked a lot of our front five last week, and we've got to ask them to go to the well again. And if they can negate that first 60 minutes we're in the game, well then, I feel like from a back three, back row to 15, that we're very capable, and we've got a lot of game changers in that. So, I do think that set piece is going to be huge, and they've got to be more clinical in that 22 space. So when they get in there, they've got to come away with a score every time. And they speak all the time about the ability to score tries against teams like New Zealand because penalties won't do, but you've got to find a balance that, you've got to make sure that every time you enter there into that scoring zone, you're coming away with something.
Do you think they have a chance? Do you think they will come away with something tomorrow?
Yeah, look, I think they have a chance. I think it's going to be difficult for them for sure. The New Zealand team blew me away last weekend in relation to their efficiency, and I think Ireland aren't used to that. They're not used to that pressure constantly. But the fact that Sam Whitelock is missing is a big loss for them. He's like their leader. There's been a huge amount of calls for him to be the captain of the side, which is strange in terms of, just still an active player playing. But So yeah, Dalton Papali'i has had a brilliant Super Rugby campaign. You know, the fella that's coming for him. So I think it's going to be difficult. I think what Ireland are looking for tomorrow is performance. Of course they can win, but I just think you've got to look at a more consistent performance across the 80 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. Niamh, great stuff this morning. Thanks a million for being with us.
Thanks a million. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Niamh Briggs there on the line, former Ireland captain. It is a 8:05 kick-off tomorrow morning in Dunedin. It's the second test. Ireland obviously beaten comfortably in the scoreline anyway in the first test. So tomorrow, pretty important morning for the Ireland team. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It is time for the sports pages.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
The Irish Examiner this morning leads with that Ronan O'Gara column. White Locks All Black absence is worth 10 to 15 points to Ireland. Got a Pat Ryan interview in there as well, the new Cork manager. Emer Ryan talking about Cody and Kylie and how they couldn't be more different in style, and the Business and Sport column on how Munster managed Van Graan's bombshell. So those are some of the headlines on the Irish Examiner sports section. The back of the Guardian leads with Raphael Nadal. Injury ends slam dream. Nadal forced out of Wimbledon to hand Kyrgios final chance. I was looking forward to that today.
Oh, the sporting world has been shafted a bit with that one.
Yeah.
Like everyone was, because it was sort of building up to be a perfect Wimbledon Friday. I've really got into it this year. Really enjoyed it this year. And the sort of Djokovic Norrie one was first, I think, wasn't it? I think that was up first, I think, was it? Or
don't
I'm
think
not
so.
sure.
No,
Was it the other way around, or were they side to side?
Yeah, no, I thought Nadal was supposed to be at half one. I could be wrong.
Apologies, maybe you're right. Sorry, but either way, you had sort of the likely underdog Brit against Djokovic angle, which gives you a certain type of storyline, and then you have the Kyrgios Nadal thing where there's a bit of a beef and there's sort of a historic dislike, but it has everything going for it as a game. And then that's just gone now, and all of a sudden it just sort of feels like potentially Djokovic does a job on Norrie, and it's a bit of an anticlimax really on Friday, which has been like a really enjoyable tournament, and it was all felt like it was building towards this day, and then it's just taken away.
It one disappointment for me is that liking Nick Kyrgios is no longer unfashionable. It seems that it's very fashionable. Like
I got on board with that.
A long time ago. This bandwagon has left the station a long time ago, and it feels that if you weren't already on board, it was just the journalist asking about the Jordans.
I tweeted something about Kyrgios, because I know obviously there's something going on with him this week, this case, which is not to sort of be to be flippant about that. It's obviously something that's going on with him it needs to, that'll come out in due course, I suppose, be dealt with in due course. But I did put out something like the BBC commentary treatment of him, I thought, in one of the games last week was unbelievable. So I did put out a tweet about this at the time, which somehow seemed to be propelled into tennis Twitter to the point where a mate of mine in Australia got in touch with me and said that my tweet was now being quoted in Fox Sports Australia news articles. So it's very easy to become some kind of tennis influencer here.
Yeah, clearly.
You just need to put something out there and it takes off to a different level. But he's sort of, all of a sudden, he's crept into this Wimbledon final now. You sort of forget that he's there, and he's going to be the centre stage on Sunday no matter what happens now.
Yeah,
and it's an incredible opportunity for him.
Kind of mad. There's obviously every chance that Djokovic does a job on him on Sunday as well. So it's him against Cam Norrie today at 2:45 if you're looking to watch that. But it should be pretty straightforward for.
Yeah, thought
Djokovic.
So. Yeah.
That is the story on the back of the London Times this morning as well. Nadal injury puts Kyrgios in men's final. I can't serve, says Spaniard as he pulls out with injury. There's a photograph of Nadal in his press conference yesterday, and police urged to investigate Stoke abuse, writes Matt Lawton on the back of the London Times. A group of 8 former footballers are calling for Staffordshire police to open a new investigation into allegations of historical, sexual, physical and mental abuse at Stoke City. In 2015, a former Stoke apprentice, George Blackstock, sued the club's former goalkeeper Peter Fox and the club for the abuse that he claims to have suffered between 1986 and 1988. Some pretty horrific. I
read the full piece last night. It's a Matt Lawton piece, and it is. It is pretty harrowing stuff. Really, it's painting a picture of a sort of a dressing room culture, initiation rituals, whatever you want to call it, which, as you referenced, was previously dealt with, but probably in a quite unsatisfactory way, because it seems like more people are coming forward, or more people willing to speak. In fact, I think there's, in the piece further down, I think there's like another player who's quoted anonymously, didn't want to be quoted, but I think they actually now work in I think they're policemen now, and clearly there are sort of people involved who now feel, for whatever reason, that they can get their voice heard on this. So I suspect it's one we'll be hearing more of.
Yeah, absolutely. At the back of the Irish Sun leads with the Cristiano Ronaldo story. Chris to miss Reds tour. Eric's men take off without superstar, so he's not gone to Asia for their pre-season tour. Meanwhile, Eric Ten Hag says, plug the leaks, not in defence, lads, but the secrets coming out of the Old Trafford dressing room. Be interesting to see if there's any success in that. And that's the headline as well on the back of the Irish Daily Star. Snitches get stitches. Ten Hag orders code of omerta at United. Elsewhere on the back page here, Con is touch and go. Dublin star forward Con O'Callaghan is in a race against time to make the cut for Sunday's All-Ireland semi-final. This is Kieran Cunningham writing this morning. He missed the quarter-final at Cork with a hamstring problem, but Dublin want to give him every chance of proving his fitness. Now, better news on the James McCarthy front. They write that he's trained well and is expected to start at centre-back. So that's the latest from the Star on the Dublin fitness situation. The back of the Irish Daily Mail is agony for Nadal, Rafa out with injury, Kyrgios through to final, and Farrell says we've got the answers for All Blacks, and that's Max Mata celebrating for Sligo after their win in Wales, during their win in Wales last night in Europe. And the Telegraph goes with Nadal out of semi-final after injury, and Ronaldo misses start of United's tour. What do you make of the Ronaldo situation at the moment?
I don't know. I mean, it feels like it's coming towards an inevitable conclusion, that he probably does go the way it's going. I mean, I find the whole Chelsea thing a bit bizarre, really. I don't know. It does feel like, for the sake of Ten Hag and a clean slate, it would be easier for him if Ronaldo wasn't there. But obviously, he's it's not just an easy thing to move Ronaldo on, because there's so much that comes with him. The package that comes with Ronaldo, and the commercial angle and image rights and all the various angles that come with him as a player. He's not just a simple one where you can sort of do some kind of swift severance deal and move things on, or a quick fix transfer or whatever. It's not straightforward because of the size of the Ronaldo machine. Would United
be laughing if Chelsea came in and actually took them out of our hands?
Presumably. I mean, I don't know, is laughing the term, but I mean, I think it would solve a problem for them, potentially. Unless we're completely reading the situation wrong, and like Ten Hag has a firm vision for where he can somehow have a role to play for him. But it would be easier if that, like, we heard all this thing about Ten Hag come in, that like he wasn't necessarily going to be, like, he wasn't going to be the type of manager, say, that controls every aspect of the club, that they want him to be a coach, so that to me sort of read more like, even elements of recruitment. He's not going to be getting his hands dirty with too many aspects of it. That was how it was portrayed anyway before his appointment, and obviously you have to be, might be an element of spin around aspects of that, but it seems like this is something he'd be better off just that over his head, this being fixed, to be no problem. And I'm sure as a club, I don't think they'd be too unhappy. If he comes to them, if he's coming in trying to like turn this club around, and if he is communicating to them that he doesn't see him in his plans, well, then it's sort of their job to deal with that, and not leave him with a very high profile unhappy person there, if that is that turns out to be the case.
The leaks situation then, like, how significant is that for Ten Hag? It feels like there's nothing he can do.
There's nothing he can do. I mean, there really is nothing he can do other than like, you take everyone out, because like there was so many leaks last year. Like, you can play, I mean, it's a dangerous game to start trying to guess where it might be coming from, and like sometimes you have people on here going, oh well, I think it might be an agent of this player.
We didn't need to guess last year. Paul Scholes did throw Jesse Lingard under the bus.
Poor old Jesse, yeah. I mean, who is it apart from Lingard and his people? But it was almost too obvious. Like, but there was more stuff out there that couldn't all have been just coming from one particular area. Because what happens then if you decide, yes, this is exactly who it is, you take them out, and then all of a sudden these leaks continue. It's like, oh no, what have we done here? I think there's more to it than that. There's way more to it than that. There's like there's obviously with the nature of these things, it's generally it's intermediaries that tend to be involved with a lot of it. And I don't know how, because that sort of says, well, how do you fix the culture of a club? You mean you can say you can start from scratch, but you can't do that because you just can't clear everyone out. Have
United bottomed out, do you think? Is it like, have we definitely seen, like, is last season definitely the worst it's going to be?
I mean, if this season isn't any better, is that worse again because they haven't improved? You know what I mean? Like you dropped to the bottom of the chart.
Yeah.
If you flatline along at that chart, is that even worse because then it just becomes more habitual that this is a normal season?
Possibly. I think he can get away with one like non-improvement season, right?
Maybe one.
Yeah.
But like it would have to be. There'd have to be a completely different sort of mood music around the whole thing. If there's no leaks and everyone seems like they're pushing in a particular direction, it's something you can believe in. Well, then maybe that's tolerable if the position on the table remains the same.
Yeah, sorry, not improvement. Like you'd need to have some sort of tangible improvement for sure, but maybe not necessarily if they don't get into the Champions League, for example, again.
Yeah,
if they don't have any silverware. Like
the worst thing is to be irrelevant. Like you had that last day of the Premier League season where they were playing Crystal Palace, and there was all these storylines going elsewhere, and they weren't even involved. Like they never seemed less relevant, which is possibly the worst thing for them. So
it's true.
If they end up stable but irrelevant, that's probably not great either.
No, very much so. Might just bring you through the Irish Times as well at the end.
The Irish Times, yeah.
You appear to have misplaced your own paper as well this morning.
The under the roof and cornered, but opportunity remains for Ireland. It's Jerry Thornley speaking about how he reckons it'd be the best one-off result in Irish rugby history if they did it. And they're playing under the roof tomorrow in Dunedin, which I didn't realise this.
Yeah.
I was at Johnny On with Alan Quillen the other day, and I thought it was actually quite a good question in the sense of, like, why is it so hard to win in New Zealand when it's not as if there's some climate aspect to it? It's not as if you're going to like a place where like these dreadful conditions you're playing in. It is just there's obviously a mental aspect to it.
Mystique.
Like, it is sort of mystique. Like you can, like if you're capable, I understand home advantage in all sport, or neutral like Chicago or something. I understand that these variables can be influential, but it is still 15v15 in a place that's not like unbelievably difficult conditions that sort of are knocking lads out with a regular rhythm, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that is maybe the mystique, like that the record is that collectively so bad, and I can understand possibly why in that context Jerry is making the point that it would be the greatest one-off victory if they did do it.
Where does the culture of the All Blacks rank in your top 5 great sporting cultures?
Well, isn't they're the famous no dickheads one? Is
yeah,
right?
That's one.
But
they sweep the sheds better than everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Like their dressing rooms are exceptionally clean.
Yeah.
I presume it's up there because everyone seems to go there as their gold standard culture, But what happens if it's a bit like people talk about German efficiency, and then they go there and the trains don't run on time, and they go, well, what goes on? Like maybe there is a dickhead in there, Like it's possible that there is. It's possible that occasionally.
Can't believe you would say such a thing.
It's possible that maybe in the WhatsApp group there's occasionally some like bad behaviour or discord or disharmony.
No chance. The results speak for themselves, Dan.
No, but apart from the fact they don't actually win everything, though, do they? They've lost some stuff in recent times.
Don't let facts get in the way.
So the culture isn't perfect.
A good veneer.
Yeah, the back page of the end. I was reading it. I feel like I should do it.
Yeah, we had it earlier.
It was to do with the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite interesting that they're popping up. I'm getting up our e-paper here, which has it. They're trumping up the holiday fund for the Tailteann Cup winners.
60 grand, I think, is it?
Yeah, 60 grand into the holiday fund, which is very much a sense of, because this game is on this week. Yeah. There's obviously a big sort of focus on making this competition relevant. So Tailteann's Cup's holiday bonus, Cavan or Westmeath set to receive a 60 grand top up towards their end of year team trip. The prize is part of this is a Colm Key story, a suite of measures that the GAA have introduced to help with promotion and interest in their new secondary competition. The winners of the Sam Maguire, I didn't know this now, I have to say, maybe it's very well known in sort of GAA circles. The winners of the Sam Maguire and Liam McCarthy Cup are usually in receipt of around 80 grand as a contribution to the holiday fund. So the Tailteann grant is 60 grand, although that hasn't been officially conveyed to the counties yet.
Okay, so there's a carrot here which they don't know exists.
But like, where does it just go into does it pay for the flights? Like, do they get fast tracked? Is it hotels?
Yeah.
You know, is it sort of a
just splash it all in the Terminal 1 bar in Dublin Airport?
This is what I'm saying. Like, is to give you a pre. You know, do you get into the lounge?
Yeah.
Like, you know, how do you actually divide? Where does this 60 grand go?
I know. Can a Cavan PRO or a trip organizer stretch 60 grand to an entire holiday? Probably.
Can we clarify this?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, how far can 60 grand take you? Does it get you a good restaurant booking somewhere?
It's a great prize. I mean, that had been mentioned kind of like in passing. It's one of those throwaway cliches about any sort of non-top tier competition. It's like, well, there needs to be, you know, the holiday needs to be paid for or something like that, or they need to go on the All-Star trip. That's a genuine incentive. And like, I mean, the opportunities for teams to go on holidays is usually just reserved to the All-Ireland finalists and the losers.
Yeah.
The Tailteann Cup has that same standing. I mean, I think that's a good card.
It is a card for them. It's a great reward. It's just I just think it's a sort of it's just one of these things, like traditions are such that like they're so entrenched for a long period of time that they're very normal to people who know it and live it. And then you step back from outside, you're thinking, yeah, this is mad. Like, this is a team playing in front of a huge crowd and they're looking for a holiday fund. It's like Bullseye or something. You know, like trying to get a speedboat. Like, you know, you have this big sort of contest for this sort of prize. It's very hard to quantify like what it means. It's like, what if you can't go that week?
They should just like wheel Marty Whelan onto the pitch at the end of the All-Ireland and play winning streak. Diamond Dilemma for the winners.
Is there like a big novelty check they could possibly present to them?
That would be fantastic.
With like sort of a couple of people aside dressed in holiday clobber as if to represent this sort of sun-drenched paradise they're going to go towards.
That's it, just people in Hawaiian gear coming on with the big check.
That's what the trophy presentation should be. If it doesn't quite have the traditional cup status of the main ones, that's what you need.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. It's interesting they haven't told them what the prize is, but so they're just playing for pride this weekend. We are going to chat a little bit about the Tailteann Cup final, of course, in our quick picks, which we'll get to in just a moment. But now you can tune into Off the Ball every day this week, where with thanks to Sport Ireland Campus we have daily prizes of €200 vouchers that can be used towards membership at their elite gym facility and pitch rentals for your team, kids sport academies and camps, or a family visit to Aquazone Water Park. Plus an amazing overall prize of a €1,000 voucher, a money can't buy behind the scenes tour, and a sports team fitness testing session by an experienced strength and conditioning coach. It's all with thanks to Sport Ireland Campus, the home of Irish sport from beginners to high performance and everyone in between. Here we go. Now, time for the quick picks.
Some of these critics, these pundits, I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable. I'd like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just dismiss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
All right, you are welcome along to the quick picks. We have everyone on the line, I believe. We've got Aisling, how are you?
Morning, Owen, how are you?
Very well. Tommy, what's the crack?
Morning, folks. How are we?
And Adrian Barry with a different background. Adrian, how are you getting on?
Full house.
Where are you, Adrian?
I'm on the line on speaking to OTB AM this morning, and I've made a little note here of the elitism on Tailteann Cup final weekend. The elitism that's already been persuaded the narrative. It's great that they're playing for a holiday fund. It's not just pride they're playing for. Jeez, could you be more patronising?
Why? What else is what else is there to play for? Pride, the Tailteann Cup. Do they need a holiday fund to kind of rubber stamp this thing?
It's a national final of significance for the second tier of teams on. I'm all for it, you know. 60 grand, and we were talking about the Cavan PRO. He or she needn't worry too much about it. We're going another direction, obviously. 60 grand in a group. What would they be in a group like? 45-ish. Travelling party, assume between squad and backroom and all that sort of stuff. 60 grand won't go very far.
Are you going on tomorrow?
I won't be able to make it, but I'll be watching it.
Good stuff. Right, let's get into our picks. I think we are going to start with the Tailteann Cup final. It is Westmeath against Cavan tomorrow. Let's see who we're picking. Oh, we've got a split vote here. So myself and Ashton are going for Cavan. Tommy, Will and Adrian are going for Westmeath. Adrian, we'll just stick with you for the sec. You believe your boys are going to do it?
I think it could be a cracker. I do think they'll come out the right side of it. I don't think there isn't very much clearly between the teams. I think it could be an absolute belter of a game. When you look at the score lines that the two of them have put up across the year. Two of them put up big scores. In Westmeath's case, that includes in the provincial championship 2-15 against Kildare even. And I know that were within a goal of Kildare, obviously, in the end. It definitely didn't tell the full story of the game, but it did show capacity. And I've been very frustrated with Westmeath for the last 10 plus years in their ability to put up any more than 12 or 13 points in any one game, and they've blitzed that out the gate this year. And Cavan have done likewise in games as well. How the very tight win obviously over Sligo pushes the pin of their collar in a way that Westmeath weren't against the depleted. Awfully how all that plays out will be difficult to see. But will be interesting to see. But it's been interesting because both of them as well have really flitted in and out of games, like including Cavan were 6 or 7 points up against Sligo early on. And I have said on this show before that Westmeath, when they're on it, I think could put it up against any of the most of the best teams in the country when they play for that 15 or 20 minutes, which they just haven't been able to put together for 70 minutes. I don't expect that to happen this weekend either. I expect both of them to fade in and out of the game, which could definitely lend itself to that idea of the cracker. It's almost like both of them have the NBA Jam catch-up mode on at various points to allow the other team into it, to put together a run in 10 or 15 minutes where they're just lashing over scores and drawing themselves back into the match. And if that plays out the way Bournemouth have suggested it might, it could be an absolute belter.
You've mentioned crackers so many times, Adrian. I just can't stop thinking about cheese.
I'm watching too many Derry girls.
And I just can't help but ask and reveal, how is the cheese in France? I mean, you are in France. I mean, people like you. There's a lovely French curtain behind you. Like, how is the wine and the cheese in France? This is you in your element.
I haven't had a huge amount of cheese so far. I've had a little bit of wine, but technically I'm still working this week on, so you know yourself.
Yeah.
Keeping it under wraps.
Yeah. Tommy, it felt that a couple of weeks ago there was consensus that Cavan were going to be Tailteann Cup champs. There was nothing that anybody could do to stop them. So why all of a sudden are we all very uncertain about the outcome of tomorrow?
Well, Owen, it depends on who you were talking to back then a couple of weeks ago.
You've been Westmeath from the start, have you?
I call Westmeath from the very start.
All right.
So Westmeath were my team to win the Tailteann Cup. Yeah, 100%. So it's going to be tight. As Adrian said, it's going to be a cracker. I like the way Adrian was talking about the NBA catch-up mode. For me, it's about who has the best purple patch. Like that's the most important part that's going to happen here this weekend. And when the other team gets on top, can they be quelled? So Cavan have plenty of shooters across the board. Westmeath are the same. And I'm just backing the likes of John Heslin to just get them over the line. There's a supporting cast now in Westmeath that have come to the fore over the last little while, and Ronan O'Toole, Sam McCartan, even Lorcan Dolan. That's going to be very close. But when you go through that list of Cavan footballers, there's a lot of quality in that team. Faulkner full back, Clark at 6. You've got Galligan and Smith in midfield. 2 shooters, 2 quality box office footballers. And that's before you get to the likes of Paddy Lynch and Gerard McKiernan. So this is going to be a quality game of football.
Aisling, you're on our side of the fence here with Cavan. You've stuck, and I know there was a couple of red flags, I think, in that semi-final against Sligo, to be honest, but you've stuck firm with Cavan for this final.
Yeah, Owen, I have, but it wasn't easy to decide. I was sort of swayed towards Westmeath just on their recent form. I think they've been getting better and better, really improving. They're exciting to watch. But it just swayed me from the Ulster Championship and seeing what Cavan can do. And I think when it comes down to it, we're in Croke Park, there's silverware on the line, the experience that Cavan have. Tommy just went through some of the players there. I think this will mean a hell of a lot to them. And I think they can turn it on when they want to turn it on. Mickey Graham is an unbelievable manager. They really buy into what he says, and they really back him. And I think that they can go all the way if they put the performance that I know they can put in. We've seen them in the Ulster Championship. We've seen them with a few really surprising results over the years as well. I say 2020 against Donegal in that Ulster final as well. So yeah, I think when it matters most, Cavan will show up. But look, Westmeath have been brilliant. The likes of John Heston, even the likes of Luke O'Loughlin coming on off the bench a lot of the times. He's been epic this year as well. So they have that strength and depth through the squad. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a brilliant final. But isn't it great that we're still seeing these teams at this time of year in the final looking for silverware? It's brilliant to see. Yeah, and it's great that there's a 60 grand bounty on the head of the Tailteann Cup as well this year. I think, Adrian, you'd be rightly salivating when you look at Cavan getting opened up a little bit in the second half of that Tailteann Cup semi-final. I think that would show that there's going to be plenty of opportunity for that Westmeath attack to card them open at the weekend. But I think the Mickey Graham factor has to be brought into account there as well. Surely lightning can't strike twice. He'll have looked at their own tape. He doesn't even need to study Westmeath. He'll look at his own tape and say, we can be a hell of a lot better. So they won their semi-final without being
really, really good, I would say, Cavan, especially at the back. I thought they looked quite vulnerable, and I expect them to fix it tomorrow, and that's why I'm going for a Cavan win. But the majority on the quick picks are going for Westmeath, because Will is going for Westmeath as well. Final word, Tommy, before we move on to the semi-finals. You were about to come in there.
Sorry, Owen. Yeah, it just all depends on what Cavan turns up. Is it the Cavan team that won Ulster in 2020, or is it a team that lost a relegation playoff to Wicklow and Navan in 21 to go down to Division 4?
Probably the one we've seen this year, the team that didn't get annihilated in Ulster, the team that did win the Division 4 final, that did win their Tailteann Cup semi-final. They're in the final for a reason. They haven't got here by losing games.
No, 100%. I'd argue with you though that there was 2 Cavans that appeared this year. The football that was played in Division 4 final was pedestrian stuff.
Yeah, it was bad.
And it was a world apart from the Cavan we saw against Donegal.
Yeah.
And I just think that little bit of inconsistency in Cavan is why I'm edging towards Westmeath.
The two of them show the same stuff. That's the thing. They can turn up on the day, which that's the reason. Either of these teams on the day, if they play to the top of their quality, would be at home in an All-Ireland quarter final.
Yeah.
If both teams play to the top of their quality, who wins?
Westmeath.
See, I think Cavan. Yeah, I think if both teams play to the top of their quality, Cavan win, and that's kind of what we're probably disagreeing on here.
I just think Leinster's a bit stronger than Ulster, lads. And
of course. Yeah, how could you possibly disagree with that? Okay, so it is 3 for Westmeath, 2 for Cavan. Let's move on to our first semi-final, which let's go with Kerry Dublin first to see where people are going on this one. Okay, everybody's going for Kerry except Adrian, who's your daddy Barry. Why have you gone against Kerry, Adrian?
Now that you painted that way on, I'm starting to doubt myself already. But there isn't very much between them. There is nothing between either of these games, any of the 3 of them, in fact. And I think that there are still question marks about Kerry. They had nothing to do to win. Like, we don't actually really know the true personality of this Kerry team yet, to be honest with you. This year, they had nothing to do to win Munster. They beat a Mayo side. Like, how much do we read into had they beat the Mayo side, who were a group who were coming to the end of an era, who were dead on their feet, or was that really a really good Mayo side? We know they're really good individual players, but was it a really good side? So, on that basis, was it a really impressive win? It's impossible to know, and so there's big question marks about them, and that's part of them. I feel it's the former, obviously, and that's why I'm leaning towards Dublin. They have the scar tissue of Cork a couple of years ago, the scar tissue of Tyrone. Very difficult to know where they're at. I heard you were saying earlier on about Kieran Cunningham reporting this morning that Con is 50-50. They're not bad odds. And if he is 50-50, maybe he starts. And if he starts, I expect Dublin to win.
Aisling, you disagree?
Yeah, I do think it's going to come down to if Con starts or not. And I know you shouldn't really put it down to one player, but that's actually the way you talk about Dublin now, when we never, ever would have talked about Dublin that way. One player does not make a team. I know that, but, you would have always seen the impact of the bench, and that would have made a big difference. But I don't look at Dublin that way anymore. And Con, when he came back, obviously we didn't see him for the league. He came back in Championship, and he was such a spark in that full forward line. And even the way he creates scores, yes, he scores a hell of a lot himself, but he creates scores. He creates the space. He does a hell of a lot for that forward line. And I think he was missed big time against Cork. So I think if they don't have him, or they don't have him fully fit, because it is a hairline fracture, we're not sure, nobody knows, we're not going to know till probably a few minutes before the game. But I think without him, it's probably a big task. But I do think it'll be a brilliant game. It's going to be close. Some of the matchups are going to be fascinating to see. And if David Clifford as well is fully fit, we don't know, but it'd be great to see the both of them out there from a neutral point of view. But I just think that the Kerry have righted some of the wrongs from last year. Like, we used to talk about the defensive issues last year. We talked about it at the show the other night on that, that was the thing with Kerry, that these defensive issues, and Paddy Tally's come in, we can see that they've tightened up at the back. And I just think that they definitely have enough to get over Dublin this time. It has to be now on.
Wasn't it the 2006 World Cup where everybody became unbelievably aware of what your metatarsal was because of what Wayne Rooney was going through in the build up to it? Everybody is an expert in hairline fractures this week, and that may not even be the thing that Conor O'Callaghan has. He may not even have a hairline fracture. It just seems to have been the buzzword this week. Tommy, I obviously misremembered the football pod. I thought you'd actually tip Dublin on the football pod, but you're going for Kerry.
No, I'm going for Kerry, and just in terms of experts on hairline fractures, we have James O'Donoghue on the football pod who has had a number of hairline fractures over the years, and When I told James the news that was reported in the Star earlier the week, he said, where? And I went looking in the report, and there was no information about where that hairline fracture was. Now, I've heard saying, and I'm not going to say it because I haven't got a second source in it where it is. But James says if it's in your arm, you can make it happen. If it's in your leg, you've no chance. Now, the fact that the Star are reporting again this morning that it's 50-50, the same paper that reported that it was a hairline fracture, this would lead me to believe that Conor Callan isn't right, but Dublin are going to play him, that he is going to start. That he is, as Ashton said, he is that important.
So, Tommy, can I ask you a question? Like, so if a few weeks ago, you know that you'll only get Con for maybe one game, are you picking Cork, are you picking Kerry, or are you picking Derry/Galway? You're probably picking Kerry, to be fair.
Totally. I'd like 100%. 100%. If you're Dublin, that Dublin team that sure they don't have the same depth, the same strength and depth, but they still have 4 or 5 generational players. They still have 7 or 8 players with multiple All-Ireland, 13 players with multiple All-Ireland medals. You're going to back yourself against most teams. Kerry are the team that are coming, but the only doubts about Kerry at the minute is that propensity to shoot themselves in the foot. It's to fall short against Cork. It's to get caught against Tyrone. And sure, there was varying reasons for all of those, but Kerry just haven't proven it yet. On paper, it looks like Kerry are stronger. It looks like they have more options on the bench. They absolutely have more options on the bench. And their starting 15, in my eyes, the graph of it appears to be marginally stronger than Dublin. That's the way it looks, but they have to prove it. And, you know, as I said all week, this Sunday is where you prove it. Like, this is where you prove you're good enough.
This is like just such an unbelievably exciting prospect. It is it is the most important game in the careers so far of all of these Kerry players, like with the exception of those who actually won the All-Ireland in 2014. It is the most important day of their sporting lives. Like, these are the Normandy beaches approaching them right now as they look ahead to Sunday. Like, this is huge significance. I don't think we've actually paid enough attention to what happens if Kerry lose on Sunday. Of course, you're going to have the very Kerry focused backlash, but also you've got Dublin back in an All-Ireland final, favourites for an All-Ireland final. I think whoever wins the semi-final will be favourites for the All-Ireland final, and potentially back on the wagon when it comes to winning All-Irelands. The conversations around how do you stop the Dubs will come back up again, and that is the huge significance that this game has, and probably an acute realisation that what Mayo did last year in beating Dublin wasn't killing the Dubs, it was just stopping them from doing 7 in a row. That was it. The Dubs could very well be back and win another few All-Irelands here. It could be like Kilkenny in the mid-2010s. That the sting in the tail could actually last for quite some time. I think that the ripples from this weekend are going to be significant, whichever way Sunday goes.
If they lose on, and it will be a frightening prospect from anyone from the kingdom. But it's 13 years now since Kerry have beaten Dublin in a championship game. And most of those games, 11, 13, 16, 19 twice, they've all been close. They've all been in the mix. They've all been in the melting pot. But Dublin kept getting over the line. None of us feel like this is the same Dublin that, 17, 18, 19, that were at the peak during that 5 in a row, 6 in a row run. If Kerry can't get by Dublin, a wounded Dublin this week, there's a problem there that isn't football.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's a wounded Kerry as well, is the thing. Like, obviously David Clifford limping around the last day. Like 5-10 minutes in, we were all going, well, he has to come off now. And then suddenly he's still kicking points, obviously. And look, they obviously have quality everywhere. But I do wonder about that point about, like, well, I see P-Well74 here saying Kerry under most pressure this weekend, and this group always crack with pressure. I don't know if that's exactly right, but we don't know where they're at, really, this Kerry team. Like, this is the first proper test of Kerry this year.
Yeah, and you just it all depends on how much you read into how good they've been on paper and any sort of nuggets you've taken from the league, which isn't very much. So, yeah, there's a lot to be figured out on Sunday for sure, and a lot of uncertainty coming into this game on a number of fronts. The same really can't be said of Armagh against Derry against Galway on Saturday tomorrow, because we have heard a little bit more from these camps. We have seen Rory Gallagher come out and do a little bit of media in the build up to the game, and everybody, with the exception of Tommy, is backing Derry. So, Tommy, wow. This is like an anti-football pod movement. I was surprised listening to you guys this week saying that Galway should be favourites. I think the bookies have Derry favourites, but I think you were making the point that Galway should be favourites. I disagree. I think Derry are rightly favourites for this game. But Tommy, you think Galway are going to get over the line and back into an All-Ireland for the first time in 21 years?
Surprised it's 4-1. I'm really surprised by that. Really surprised by that.
Galway.
An easy call, actually. Galway is an easy call. It's
how is Galway an easy call? Explain that.
Because because this Derry group are so young in their journey, right? And all this stuff about, well, they have to lose one to win one and all that sort of stuff. So it's
They've
easy
won the
to
Ulster
go
title.
on the side of a team who, look at absolutely, and you and Aisling have been bigging them up most of the year. I'm sort of surprised that you've gone. I'm very surprised you've gone for Galway, to be honest. But yeah, it's easy to say that they're too early in the journey. Another couple of years down the line, and they'll be back here. And, a Galway team who, admittedly, is at 5 or 6 from the 2018 semi-final that are still there. It's been a big turnaround there, but a Galway team have been at this stage, have a few players with it in that sort of muscle memory in the bank. It's the easy call, Tommy.
I thoroughly disagree. I think it is an utterly different Galway team that was there in 2018. Actually, very few of them have been there, and actually Galway are very, very early in their journey under Pádraig Joyce. I just feel that once they got Sean Kelly back and they got through that epic against Armagh, that brings a team together in a way that words can't define. Same with the Ulster title with Derry a couple of weeks ago. I just think Derry were primed for Ulster. We had Rory Gallagher on the football pod last November, October, and you could just feel it. He was targeting Ulster. He was waiting for Tyrone.
Didn't look like it
against
against
Monaghan
Clare.
in his sights. He even said it during the week. He hasn't really watched Galway this year. Now, I don't fully believe that, but I do believe how tunnel visioned he was during Ulster. 100%.
Because you have to be.
100% you have to be, Aisling.
You have to just focus on that in order to get out of that, to put up those big performances. You meet the big teams in Ulster. It's not like other provinces. So
Totally agree.
Yeah. So
No, I totally agree. But I just that's why I feel like Derry were ready to go. And I doubted them in the All-Ireland quarter-final. I still backed them, but I felt like there would be questions asked of them. Clare didn't ask those questions, but I feel like most other counties would have asked questions of Derry in Croke Park. And I feel like Galway, who bet them in the league, not that we're going to read too much into that, Galway have too many threats. And that's what I think. Galway have too many threats. Derry will need to rack up. And I know they've hit 118 after extra time or 116 after extra time and 312 against Monaghan. I don't think Galway are going to concede the same goals. I just don't think they are.
No.
Even though they have so many threats, can I just ask, if they have so many threats, right, having said all of that, they obviously have one player of a generation, Marquis Ford. If they get the mockers on Shane Walsh, is that not it?
No. Robert Finnerty has shot the lights out because he's been number 3 in every game. He's been a number 3 Galway attacker. And last week against Armagh, it wasn't the A team that stood up. It was the B side. It was Matty Tierney. It was Killian McDade. And it was Finnerty who stood up. It wasn't Comer, Walsh and Conroy. I just feel like Derry are quality. They're a brilliant team. I've loved watching them this year. I'm just edging. I'm surprised it's 4 against 1. I really am. I think it's the easy call to go for the Finch champions.
No, it's possibly, but I think that you can cut as deep into that Derry attack as well and come up with big performers too. I think it's extremely tight. Just that thing about the last day, Tommy, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm getting spooked a little bit about Clare's no-show last Saturday. But, are we sure that is the sort of thing that brings the team on? Are we sure that, it's a positive experience for them needing extra time and penalties and the whole fallout from the brawl and having to go through jump through the hoops to ensure that Sean Kelly did get off, even though it was a no-brainer that he would get off? I'm not sure that all amounts to something that we can speak to as a reason why Galway are going to win. Derry's build-up has been perfect. They had a cakewalk in an All-Ireland quarter-final to settle the nerves. They played and they've won in Croke Park, and they've got the sort of, we're Ulster champions only off their back. They've won their quarter-final, won it well. I think they're in a perfect place. If we're talking about positioning and being in the right mood for a semi-final, I think Derry, of all the 4 teams actually, are in the most in the most special place, if you want to use that phrase.
Derry are in unfamiliar territory though. Derry are now favourites, regardless of whether it's
they were at the quarter-final as well though.
Yeah, but you could go out with your chest out that day, and they did, and actually,
and they will this Saturday for sure. They'll go out with their chest out.
But what I'm saying is that Galway have more punch, far more punch than Clare. Far more punch.
That's
Christy McKaigue wrapped up Keelan Sexton. Derry didn't even put Brendan Rodgers on a Clare attacker. They didn't bother. They put Brendan Rodgers in midfield. So, if Derry don't put Rodgers on a Comer, they're going to put him on McDade to try and stop one of Galway's threats from further out the pitch. My point is that Galway just have more punch going forward, and Galway's defensive system, while Galway, there's a flakiness about Galway, 100%. You saw the goals that Armagh got late on. You saw how Roscommon were 9 points down and they nearly caught them. Mayo nearly caught them. There's absolutely a flakiness about Galway, 100%. They're not perfect. But I just think they have too many threats across the pitch. And I called Derry against Tyrone months ago, and I probably haven't backed them a huge amount since. I thought they were good odds for the Ulster. I'm not backing them in this All-Ireland semi-final.
Okay. Well, there was unanimity on the football pod. If anybody from Galway is feeling a little bit unloved this morning, both James and Paddy, and of course Tommy, backed Galway to win this game tomorrow afternoon. But on the quick picks this morning, of course, the gurus here know better than Paddy Andrews and James.
Who's leading the way?
Do we have a scoreboard? I'm not sure we do. I don't. Oh no, we do. Ashling's leading the way, and Adrian is bottom of the table. I'm not sure if these statistics are correct,
They're
but
absolutely not right.
Sorry, I didn't get in there, but I'd be afraid of how Derry frustrate teams. I think they'll get in Galway's head. They're just dogs when it comes to that. So I think if it gets into a fight, who's going to come out on top? I think Derry will frustrate teams. Think of the matchup as well. With
think of the Armagh fight. How could you have come up against a team who are more ready for a psychological fight? Armagh, who've been in 3 brawls already.
Would be ahead of Armagh in that aspect.
No, I don't think so.
Well, this year I do.
In terms of fighting, in terms of football, maybe Derry are ahead of Armagh, but not in terms of fighting.
Not a fight, like as in like toughness out on the pitch, get into your head, mind games, that type of thing. I think Derry are ahead of the game in that. Rory Gallagher has it read into them.
I think Galway have come through the most psychological, physical test they will have so far, and it'll stand to them.
I have been impressed with Galway this year and how they're improving. But I just think, I think Derry can go the whole way. Said it earlier on in the year, say it again.
Okay, Aisling, Tommy, good stuff. Adrian, where are you off to today?
Go on, Ash. You called it last year.
Derry's going to the All-Ireland. Adrian, where will you be watching the game from tomorrow?
I need to get down to Sheridan Zone and get myself sorted out all right for the morning, and then and take it from there.
I mean, the lie is up, Adrian. We know you're in France. Like where like
Sheridan.
Oh, yeah. Do we just stop asking questions about this now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, enjoy it wherever you are in that mystically good-looking place. The sun peering out from the curtain over your shoulder. Good stuff. That's this week's quick picks.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
All right, it is 16 minutes past 9. You're very welcome back to OTB AM, which is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what we've got coming up on OTB Sports Radio. OTB Gold from 1 o'clock is Ronnie Delaney. 3 o'clock is a live Friday night racing. 4 o'clock then is the McKaigue pod. Euro's obviously underway at the moment. And then OTB Gold from 6 o'clock is with Catherine Switzer. You can follow Off the Ball across all our social channels, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can download the OTB Sports app for the latest and best in sports content and analysis. Now, keep an eye out during the ad break for the next edition of Passing It On, where Offaly legend Daithí Regan sat down with his son Jack to talk all about their experiences in their respective sports. Here's Daithí Regan discussing his heroes and role models throughout the years, and this episode of Passing It On is brought to you by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Don't miss a moment of Ireland's tour of New Zealand.
Similar, except I went out till about 5 or 6 in the morning, so I had a great time.
I think I would have preferred to be with Fiona having a party. Good on you, I love that. That's the true spirit of rugby there. I missed the game, but I didn't miss the party. That's great.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
When you look back on it, the GAA was founded in 1884, and it took Offaly till 1990 to win the first Leinster, and 1980 to win the first Leinster, and a year later to win the first All-Ireland. So you went like nearly 90 years before Offaly ever won anything, and you were a young fella when that happened. So you were very susceptible to the excitement around it. And so that Offaly first team that made the breakthrough were our heroes. To this day, they would be. I was talking to Johnny Flaherty this evening, and we were playing a bit of golf tomorrow in the All-Ireland Golfers Hurling Society, and I'd still to this day have an immense respect for them, because I put it down to them how I and others kind of started, and we became successful because of the leadership they gave,
Yeah, and have you got anybody off that, like particular team who you look up to as like a, like role model, or who?
Yeah. I met him,
who that
actually,
be?
Believe it or not, I met him. Brian Lowry wrote a book there lately. They're doing the rounds in all the counties, your best or most special ever day in your county jersey. So that they interviewed about 30 Offaly players who went through their favourite game and the whole thing. And Pádraig Horn launched it for him. Pádraig was captain of that 1980 team that made the breakthrough on the 81 team. So he was also a teacher in school. And I won a College's A All-Ireland title in my top 3 memories of hurling under him. And I won my first College's or Club All-Ireland with Burr with us under him, non-smoker, non-drinker, an incredible role model. And it's interesting that you mentioned role model, not hero, because he was a role model in how he lived his life, how he still lives his life. He's long retired now out of St. Brendan's Community School, but I got the opportunity to have a great chat with him. It's been a long time since I did, and I was able to tell him again a number of weeks ago how much he was important to me in my hurling career. And I told him that he was, and I told him that he was always my inspiration and always my hurling hero, and a man I greatly respect. And I could see it meant a lot to him. Porrig is maybe early 70s now. But like, to me, he's an extraordinary man and an extraordinary leader, and lived a good life and is a very good man. And I have great respect for that as well. So
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Chris Waddle. Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in our no-holds-barred quizzes sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant is here to prove that he is a serious newspaper scribe and has shown up to this quiz to prove his journalistic integrity and bolster his reputation. It is the RD Destroyer, Dan McDonnell.
Listen, it's a pleasure to be here. It's my first time on this quiz. Yeah.
How do you feel?
Wow. I hope you're better than your mate.
You've picked me up against like two of your more volatile candidates here. It's like a live golf tournament here or something. Like you've got some of the heels out to try and sort of stimulate a response.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. Is that, I mean, Nathan's already getting involved without being introduced. That's how pumped up he is for this.
Choose your live golf fighter, Nathan. Who are you if you had to be a live golfer?
Oh, I'm Bryson.
You're Bryson. Mickey, who are you?
Pumped up.
I don't know who wins all the tournaments in live golf, because that's
Brandon Grace.
Brandon Grace and Charles Schwartz.
That's who I'd be. Yeah, I'm a South African live golfer who wins every time he steps on the course.
Yeah.
Our second
in a week.
Volatile. 4 times in a row champion. Volatile.
Our second contestant is a happy man this week. A happy man that almost got thrown in jail, but a happy man all the same. He will never be left within the 2 kilometre radius of Jordan Spieth again, but that's journalism, baby. Give it up for the beast of Ballyhaunis, Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
Hello, everybody.
How many views does your video with Jordan Spieth have now?
I don't keep count, but now that you ask.
How many by Jordan Spieth?
Yeah, how many by Jordan Spieth? Well, listen, I think I inspired Jordan to greatness yesterday in Scotland. Quiet word.
Yeah, it seemed to have done the trick for him. And our final contestant has burned his Tony Kelly pyjamas and started a Bring Back Davy thread on the Clare GAA forum. He's angrier than ever after last week's collapse. It's APM angry producer Mick.
Hi, Owen.
Welcome back.
Look, the only person that's angry on this call is Nathan, who spent the entire week, and I'm not joking when I say this, the entire week whinging about the quiz 2 weeks ago. He won last week, which gave him even more emphasis to moan about the fact that he was robbed 2 weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to legitimately putting him in his place this week. Also,
thanks for bringing that back up.
Owen is freaking me out by being in the wrong seat for this quiz, so I don't know where to be looking at.
And Johnny was on last week, was he?
He was.
He was correcting, correcting your grammar, basically.
No, he wasn't. He was.
That's about all he
was correcting the grammar, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, he was wrong.
Okay. I don't want to bring it up again.
That's where Johnny belongs.
Yeah, I just listen. I'm going to sort of have some kind of higher ground here. You know, I'm not going to get involved in the culture of the crappy quiz, which just appears to be shouting. And
you won't be asked back, Dan.
But I am also very competitive, so I'm trying to keep a lid on that. And I'm going to pretend to be relaxed if I lose.
Your only job is
I'm just a bit concerned just from the outset, because anytime anyone makes their debut on the crappy quiz, Eoin
win.
gives them soft questions. Unbelievable. Like Eoin is going to ask you to name which team won the League of Ireland last year. That's what we're coming with now in the next few minutes. So I'm a bit concerned.
Get your excuses in early.
Your only job is to make this not an entirely joyless experience, and then it will be an improvement on last week. So if you can just keep that in mind, that is
joyless from Johnny.
Yeah,
joyless Johnny.
Beyond
not necessarily his calling card either, but anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The format is the classic crappy quiz this morning with a series of questions and a range of themes. Then we finish up with the slip and slide of trivia, which is a rapid fire round. You can podcast this quiz on OTBSports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'd love if you gave us a thumbs up, even if we contribute nothing but misery to your day. You can send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1, the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Dan, your soft question supposedly. Can you list off the League of Ireland Premier Division in order from the team that is currently top of the table to the team that is currently bottom of the table?
That is not soft.
That's not that soft. So
that is not soft, Dan.
So Shamrock Rovers are
follow
top.
the League of Ireland.
Shamrock Rovers are top.
But you'll get
Dundalk are second.
Dundalk are second, yeah.
Derry City are third.
Yeah.
St Pat's are fourth.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to think. Bows won last night, so I'm trying to think. No, I think Sligo Rovers are fifth.
Yeah.
Bows are sixth.
Yeah.
Shells are seventh.
Yeah.
Drogheda are eighth.
Yeah.
Finn Harps are ninth.
Yeah.
And East City are 10th.
What an answer. This guy just tearing up
the
crappy quiz. No, absolutely. He gave 10 correct answers, Nathan. This guy.
I'd have got that, and I had the same fear about Bowes as you did. Yeah.
We finally. He is the Maradona of the
Nathan's
crappy
still
quiz.
talking in the back.
Not bad. It's a boring questions round, Nathan.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Nathan, who are reigning champions of the Women's Euros?
Who's laughing in the background?
You can hear Andy laughing through the glass.
That was production, to be clear. There's no one here.
The soundproofing is not exactly exceptional. I'm going to go for the Netherlands.
Correct. Well done. Mick, who did Galway beat in the semi-final the last time they made an All-Ireland football final?
The last time they made a football final was 2001, and they beat. Oh, I'll tell you the other semi-final that year. That's not good to you, though, is it?
Not the question, I don't think.
Mead hammered Kerry, just in case you're wondering. Tyrone?
No. It was Derry.
Derry in 01 as well?
Yeah.
And 98?
And 98.
Oh, God, okay. Well, I genuinely didn't know that, so there you go.
Round 2 is the Reeling in the Years round. In this round, I give you all a year, and all you got to do is name the winners and runners-up of 3 sporting competitions from that year. Dan, you're first up. Your year is 2019. Can you name the winners and runners-up of the Open, the Winners' World Cup, and the Copa America?
Oh, the British Open.
Yeah.
Oh, 2019. Oh. Do you want to play that music thing? It's just like
I'm sure it's coming back soon. When Emma gets bored, she just hits it. Oh, sorry, it's Jojo hitting it. Sorry.
I like it now. Yeah, it just adds a little more of ambience to my struggle.
He is having none of your shite this morning.
2019. Oh, it's the last one before COVID. I'm going to be annoyed about remembering this. Can you tell me where the course was?
I absolutely cannot.
No? okay, Nathan.
Oh, that's a very early buzzer.
I'm gone
for
on
three answers.
You don't remember the Open in 19?
I'm just I'm obsessed on the Open in 2019. Was the Women's World Cup was the USA? Was it?
Yeah. Okay, so that's 1 point.
Did they?
Well, the buzzer went technically, so.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
No,
we changed our tune now, Mick.
I was thinking of the Open. Oh, the Women's World Cup and Copa America was.
But who was runner-up in the Women's World Cup?
Oh, was it Japan?
No, it wasn't. It was Netherlands.
Netherlands, okay.
The Open, by the way, just to give you the answer.
Wasn't Mickelson's ear, was it?
No, it was Lowry's ear.
Oh, no.
Fleetwood in second.
Tommy Fleetwood. See, if you give me the venue. Was that really 2019?
Yeah.
You see, I think these are the more difficult ones. Anything around the COVID sort of years is very hard to remember.
Yeah.
And then differentiating.
Yeah. Then.
You have to pass these
It would have been Brazil, was it?
Yeah. Who did they beat in the final?
That's hard because there's a Copa America like every 6 months around this era.
Wasn't it Chile in that one, was it?
No, it was Peru.
Yeah.
So you come out of that with 2 points. You're on 3 points in total. Nathan, your year.
Sorry, how did he get 2 points? How did he get?
Because he got Brazil and USA.
Oh,
there's 6 points on the go, isn't it?
Very relaxed there.
Sorry, Nathan, are you just looking for 3 points out of this or 6?
No, sorry, I thought.
No, Nathan only wants to go for 3, so let's go for Nathan's 3. Okay.
Okay. No. It's fine. It's me now, is it?
Nathan, your year is 2018. Can you name the winners and runners-up of Wimbledon men's singles, the World Cup third place playoff, and the Tour de France?
In some ways, that's actually easy.
Yeah, it actually is. Nathan, no, it's
winners
easy questions.
and runners-up.
Tour de France, like.
So, let me see here. World Cup was France against Croatia.
Proper July special for Nathan there.
The World Cup one is pretty handy, to be honest.
Wimbledon men's or women's?
Men's. Can we get some answers at least? Just, tip this thing along.
Winner, Djokovic.
Yeah. Who did he beat in final?
Federer?
No, it was Kevin Anderson. World Cup, third place playoff.
England were beaten.
Yeah. By...
I don't think it's the right answer, but I have in my head Germany.
No, it was Belgium.
Ah, yes.
And then Tour de France.
Winner, Chris Froome.
No. Second.
Chris Froome.
Pogacar.
No, it wasn't. It was Geraint Thomas's year, and Tom Dumoulin was second. Mick,
holy hell!
You got an opportunity.
It's a hard round.
For Mick. It's Dan 3, Nathan 3, Mick 0. Your year is 2017, Mick. Can you name the winners and runners-up of the NBA Championship, the Six Nations, and the EFL Championship?
Oof.
The championship. Okay, 2017. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. I can't say I immediately know any of them. The Six Nations in 2017 was won by England.
Yeah. Who came second?
Wales?
No, it was Ireland.
Okay. The NBA was... I'm just trying to get the years. Was it the Cavs?
It was not.
Shit.
Who lost the finals?
Was it the Cavs?
It was the Cavs.
Warriors won it?
Warriors won.
Damn it. And the championship, 17. That was the year after Villa got relegated. So it would have been our first year in there, which was won by definitely not Aston Villa. Norwich?
No. Safe enough bet you would have thought, but no.
Yeah, in fairness, all my logic just led me to my
just guessing Norwich.
Who came second?
Fulham.
No, it was Newcastle and Brighton, top two of 2017. You got 2 points there.
Who the hell remembers who won the championship?
I actually thought it might be Wolves.
That was very tough.
Wolves was the next year, was it, I think?
Must have been, yeah.
Yeah, I would have been going for Wolves there, definitely.
Round 3 is the Pass the Parcel of Doom round. In this round, all you got to do is give me a name that's on a list of names, and then the Parcel of Doom passes on to the next contestant, who then also has to give me a name from the list. We will keep moving until one of you gives me an incorrect answer or fails to give me a name, at which point you will be eliminated. The last player standing gets a point. So Dan, you're going to kick us off on the first list here. Can you name a winner of the Wimbledon women's singles this century?
This century? Ash Barty.
Correct. It goes to Nathan next.
Serena Williams.
Yeah.
Halep.
Yeah.
Petra KVITOVA.
I'll accept Petra Kvitova.
Yeah.
Just because you're a print journalist.
Yeah.
Got the spelling spot on.
Kvitova. Yeah, you see, I mean, it's a bit of practice.
Venus Williams.
Venus Williams is correct. Nick.
Lindsay Davenport.
Correct.
Oh, that's a good one. Century. Hingis? No? Martina Hingis?
Sorry, actually, the question is, can you name a finalist of the women's singles at Wimbledon? Sorry. But I wrote it because the list was too short of just winners. The list is actually finalists.
Serena's probably won 8 of them, has she?
Yeah, sorry. And Lindsay Davenport actually hasn't won one, so that's what kind of triggered it there. So finalists. You're all being correct so far.
She won in 90.
Well, I said Martina Hingis, but I sort of was thinking of winners, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Was she in the final?
No, she wasn't.
She's gone by then.
You're gone. Hingis was not.
Yeah, she was like 18 or 19 by the time the 2010 round she was finished.
It's Nathan next.
Bloody hell.
Bloody hell. Amelie Mauresmo.
Correct.
Oh, what is shit.
Justine Ennen.
Justine Ennen is correct.
Kim Clijsters.
No.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
No. Kim
You're kidding me.
Clijsters didn't make it to a Wimbledon final.
Kim.
So yeah, Mick, you got the point there. You're on 3.
Thank you, Owen.
We have a tie game.
Earned it.
This is. I like this next one now. Nathan, can you name a team that plays in the Danske Bank Premiership, the Northern Ireland League, if you will?
Glentoran.
Glentoran is correct. This is like a real Dan McDonnell question. Mick, you're next up.
Linfield.
Linfield is correct. We were actually just talking about some of these teams earlier on.
Crusaders.
Crusaders. We were just having a conversation around Crusaders. Nathan?
Portadown.
Correct. IFL knowledge here.
Cliftonville.
Cliftonville is correct.
How many teams are there?
12.
Is this last year's or this year's?
This year's.
The one coming.
Yeah. Oh God.
Larn
is correct.
Okay.
No, the one that's like concluded. The one that's concluded.
Concluded.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. The 21-22 season.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Nathan. Mick. Nathan.
No, Nathan.
Nathan. Yeah. You just said Larn.
We said Crusaders, did we? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll stop with the music. It's incredibly off-putting.
Pump it up.
It's like the Benny Hill music outside number 10 yesterday. Just ramp it up there.
Oh my God. Dungannon.
Dungannon Swifts, indeed. How could anybody forget them? Mick?
Sure, like Dan's going to get the point here anyway, but I may as well try and keep it going.
I'm struggling here at a particular point.
Glenavon?
Glenavon is a good answer, yeah.
Yeah. If it's last year, Warren Point.
Warren Point is correct.
Yeah.
Well done. Confirmed, it is last year's list.
Yeah.
Nathan?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 3 left.
3 left.
Am I imagining this are Ards?
That's what I was going to say.
No, Ards aren't in it. Ards aren't in it. No.
Okay.
Mick?
This is throwing it out there, but Newton Ards.
Not Newton Ards, no. There were 3 remaining teams. Do you know any of them, Dan?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't
doesn't matter. You have the point.
No, I don't.
You've taken the lead, actually, Dan.
Are Ballina in it this year? They weren't in the Premier. No, they were relegated.
Ballymena United, Carrick Rangers, and Coleraine were the
Coleraine.
Coleraine.
Okay.
Mina, yeah.
Mick, you're kicking us off with this one. Can you name a course that has hosted the Open?
Should we go with St Andrews?
Yeah.
Sandwich.
What's the name of the course? Sandwich is the name of the town.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I go for a different one then?
You can, yeah.
I'll go for Troon.
Troon, yeah.
Don't know if me or Nathan would have got away with that, but we'll move on.
Portrush.
Portrush. I see how you're all leaving out the royal part of these. Mick?
Royal St George's.
Yeah.
Carnoustie.
Which is Sandwich.
Carnoustie.
That would have been my guess, but anyway.
Nathan?
Turnberry.
Yeah.
Muirfield.
Yeah.
Hoylake.
Hoylake is also the name of the town.
Oh, is it?
Oh, that is more known as Hoylake, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna need the name. I'm gonna need the name of the course.
The Hoylake course.
Yeah, I'm gonna need the name of the course, unfortunately.
Nah, I'm gone. I can't think of it.
Nathan? Could Mick pick up the point on a golf?
Royal Liverpool.
Royal Liverpool is one you were thinking of.
Oh, is that Hoylake, is it?
Nick?
St Anne's and Lytham.
Oh, yes, yeah, I'll accept that. It's Roy Lytham and St Anne's, but yeah, I'll accept
thank you.
That's what I was about to go for.
I'll accept that.
Like, it is both of them.
Yeah, to be fair. Nathan, there are 5 left. In fairness, like 3 of these haven't hosted an Open in like a century.
Prestwick,
indeed. I think there's only like 1 more left that's on the current rota. Mick, can you get it? Because I don't think anybody's going to get the other 3.
It's unlikely, so they'll give me 10 seconds.
9.
Nothing else is coming to me. Sorry.
You're done.
Yeah.
Royal Birkdale was the one that you were missing.
Oh.
And then the
Harrington winning Birkdale?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, wait, no,
that was a couple of years ago. Musselburgh Lynx, Prince's Golf Club, and Royal Cinque Port Golf Club were the other ones.
That's what I was thinking of. That's right beside Royal St. George, I think.
So it's Dan 4, Nathan 4, Mick 3 as we enter round 4, the Fun Free Magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper, and I'm also going to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of All Ireland's Brian Cody has won as a player. The number plus the number of majors won by Phil Mickelson, plus the number of championship games Brian Fenton has lost in total as a Dublin senior footballer, plus the number of Grand Slam singles semi-finals Nick Kyrgios has played in. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads.
Now, are we counting this year as a single semi-final?
Well, he didn't play in it.
But that's what I mean.
He hasn't played in any
You're
semi-final.
sort of trying to get a hint at the answer there, Nathan.
We're wasting all our time here.
Sorry,
I don't remember the first question.
The question is the number of Grand Slam singles semi-finals Nick Kyrgios has played in. If Nick Kyrgios has played in a semi-final, you count it. If he has not played in a semi-final, you do not count
What's
it.
the first two questions?
I just don't understand how there's confusion around that.
Brian Cody's as a player.
Here, he waffled all the way through the whole thing.
Dan, what have you got?
I've got 9.
9. Nathan?
10.
10. Mick?
11.
The answer is 10.
This is the worst quiz ever. This is without the hardest quiz ever, by the way.
Brian Cody has won 3 All-Irelands as a player.
Yes.
Phil Mickelson has won 6 majors.
Yes.
Brian Fenton has lost once as a Dublin footballer in a championship. And Nick Kyrgios has never played in a semi-final. And he won't this week either, Nathan. Because Nadal pulled out. Therefore, the semi-final didn't happen. Therefore, Nick Kyrgios didn't actually play in the semi-final.
How many have you played in? Like, it's sort of pretty obvious.
Can I say one thing, right? This filibustering by Nathan, absolute nonsense, right? The only one I didn't have time to think about how many. I would have been able to count Cody's All-Irelands, but because there was no time to even think about it, I actually spit out 4.
You don't know how many All-Irelands Brian Cody knew. The greatest GAA figure of all time.
All the rest of them I knew. I was 1 over because I guessed 4 because I literally couldn't even go through the years in my head because you wouldn't shut up for 30 seconds.
Unbelievable.
That is basic knowledge. Though I would say,
basic knowledge.
Even though I have taken the points here and I'm now in a commanding position, trick questions have no place in the crappy quiz.
How is it a trick question? He didn't play in a semi-final.
It's a trick question. Yeah, but he's in the final. He was in a quarter-final, now he's in a final.
Did he play in the semi-final?
Sure, the semi-finals are only today. Even if it was on, he still wouldn't have played.
He won the semi-final.
Didn't play in it. The question was how many semi-finals has Nick Kyrgios played in? He didn't play in the semi-final. And also, it would have been in the future. The would-be fixture isn't now. It was this afternoon. We're on to the final. Our winner tonight will be decided.
So what am I on now?
You lads are really getting after each other here. You're under pressure here.
Bringing Arthur and Phil back next week. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We'll start with Nathan, then on to Dan, then on to Mick. Once you get a question correct,
you don't want to do one of your imaginary coin tosses.
I keep asking you another question until you get one wrong. Once you get a question wrong, I move on to the next person, and your incorrect answer
means the arrogance. You've all the humility of Boris Johnson standing outside.
No, but what I'm laughing at is the only thing I can see from my camera is Mick. I'm staring straight at you now, Mick. Staring straight at you.
He hasn't been that happy since Jordan's speech.
He doesn't think he's on camera, but I can see his disgust, which is over.
I know I'm on camera. What are you talking about?
Nathan Murphy, are you ready?
Oh, yes.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Who were Super Bowl champions?
Oh, he might not know this.
Tampa Bay.
No, Los Angeles Rams. Dan, what club has Darragh Lenihan signed for?
Middlesbrough. Correct.
Which player won this week's JP McManus Pro-Am?
Xander Schauffele.
Correct. Name the England women's football manager.
Oh, no, it's not Emma Hayes.
Serena Wiegman. Who is the new PSG manager, Mick?
Galtier.
Correct. Who is the new Cork hurling manager?
Pat Ryan.
Correct. Eden Park is in what city?
Auckland.
Correct. What was the last European captain to win the Ryder Cup? Too long. Thomas Bjorn. The Red Bull Ring is an F1 track based in what country, Nathan?
Austria.
Correct. What club has Danny Mandroyu signed for?
No. Lincoln.
No. Was that?
They
have one already.
Went back to 6, then he got to 7, then he went to 8, Dan got to 5. And then Mick didn't get enough. So Nathan,
I got 3
again is the winner.
You had the chance, Mick.
I did have the chance. I had the chance. I didn't think I was going to get it, but.
Your winning streak is over. Back in your box.
What's it like to be able to give an uninterrupted victory speech there, Nathan? I wouldn't know. Normally, have you shouting at me at this stage.
You haven't shut up. You haven't shut up so far.
I have actually.
I'm actually just going to let this Orkneys just sit here.
It's a little bit uncomfortable, isn't it? Yeah.
Dan, I enjoyed Dan's contributions. I thought Dan was a worthy competitor. I think we should have him back.
That was nice and patronising.
That's nicely patronising. It's like I feel as patronised as you were by Jordan Spieth, but I'm not going to take it as willingly as you did.
Do you know, Dan, when you got Xander Schauffele, I thought it was yours.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was any way back from that.
Good answer.
There was a few.
Good answer. England screwed you over again.
Well, it happened like 3 days ago.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks,
all. Have a good weekend. It is 9:45. That is this week's crappy quiz.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right? I know it's not right. Anybody else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz. What is going on here?
Yeah, just before we wrap up, just breaking news this morning that after 7 years of investigation, Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini have been acquitted of fraud in a Swiss court over 2 million Swiss francs payment in 2011. We'll have more on that on the OTB SPORTS app over the course of the day, so we'll bring you more on that as well over the next few days. OTB AM has been brought to you live each morning this week by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day, and we are back on Monday morning from 7:30. The lads will be reviewing Ireland's second test in New Zealand. It's going to be Ger and Johnny in the studio, and we'll have all the reaction from the weekend's All-Ireland Senior Football semi-finals and Tailteann Cup final. Right now we're leaving you with John Giles speaking to Nathan. Have a great weekend and chat to you on Monday.
Delighted that John Giles is back with us again. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
You're keeping well?
Good, thank you.
Good. We're still a few weeks away from the start of the season, though it's within the next month that the Community Shield is on, so not too far to go. But it's obviously the height of the transfer window, and there is a lot going on at the moment. We might go through some of the main transfers and get your thoughts on them. I'll start with Manchester City, because I know Leeds fans are going to want to know your thoughts on Calvin Phillips going to Manchester City, but also the signing of Erling Haaland. It's a really interesting window at City. Haaland, the type of player they didn't have last season, an out-and-out number 9, never stopped them scoring a huge amount of goals. Phillips coming into an area where he'll either complement Rodri or he'll go up against Rodri. And then losing Gabriel Jesus to Arsenal, and it seems almost certain now that Raheem Sterling, who's been so important for Pep Guardiola over the last 4 or 5 years, that Sterling is going to go to Chelsea. What have you made of what City have done so far?
Well, on the incomings, I think they've done well, Nathan. Phillips, we know, is an experienced player now and a very, very good midfield player. Haaland, I think, is the best young striker in the world. Nathan, of all the lads I've seen, he's the best of them. So that would be huge for Manchester City, as we know. Because don't forget, last year they actually won the Premiership without a recognised striker, Nathan, which is remarkable. So I can't see this lad's being a huge success at City. Sterling looks like he's gone out, and if I was a City supporter, I wouldn't bother about that.
Why?
I don't think he's done his stuff for City in the last 18 months. Some days when he's in the mood, as they say, he's doing it. But he always looked to me, this season anyway, as if he wanted to get away. He did. He hasn't been the Sterling that we know he can be. Not by any means. There's lots of matches I saw him play. Actually, he was left out of an awful lot of matches. So why would Guardiola do that if he was really performing? And he was performing better for England than he was for Manchester City. So it looked strange to me. It looked like a player that wasn't happy there for some reason and wanted to get away.
Haaland, you mentioned one of the best, if not the best, young striker. He'll turn 22 over the next couple of weeks. Do you think we're going to see a different style of play then from City this season now that they have a number 9 and with Sterling leaving as well? Like, do you see a scenario where it's Foden and Grealish both managing to play together off Haaland, or how do you see him fitting in and that front three looking for Manchester City?
I don't think he'll have any problems fitting in, Nathan. I mean, he's a footballer. And the goals he scores are not laid on for him all the time to be just nicking into the back of the net from 2 yards out. Like he's obviously a very, very intelligent player, what I've seen him as a striker. And I can't see him at City, scoring a lot of goals. Nathan. As I said, City last year did extremely well without a striker. But they did try to sign Harry Kane, as we know. I think Harry Kane would have finished with about 30 goals last season. I think this fella will, because they'll make enough goals. And they still got the other guys like the Foden and these lads there who did do their stuff last year to score, and they got them from midfield as well. So I can't see any reason why Haaland can't be the leading goal scorer for them and improve the team.
On those goals that he'll score then, and I'm trying to phrase this without being a particularly stupid question, they scored 99 goals last season.
Yeah.
How many more goals can you score across the season? So do you think he'll just score more goals, he'll get 30 and everyone else will drop down a little bit? Or do you look at him now at a Manchester City team and already think they're pretty much unstoppable for next season?
Well, I don't think he can add his goals to what they did last season, Nathan. Because there's obviously a player out, or 2 or 3 players out that won't be playing this season, where he'll be there. But you have to. Well, I always felt you have to have a recognised goal scorer, and City did remarkably well to do what they did. But if they get 90 goals again, it's quite a lot, Nathan, and they've got a better chance of getting 90 goals again, and maybe a little bit more, with getting Haaland in the team. I mean, he's a recognised striker. I think he's excellent. Not me. Everybody thinks he's excellent. And I think with the way City play, with the way they make the goals for centre forwards, I can see him being a huge success for them. And it won't stop. It won't stop the other lads scoring goals anyway to come in on it. They had them last year, as we know. Scoring 90 goals is remarkable without a recognised striker. I mean, if you look at Liverpool, for example, with Salah as leading goal scorer, all the other teams had leading goal scorers, Nathan.
Yeah.
Well, a recognised leading goal scorer. City didn't have it. I think the most anybody's single individual was about 10 or 12, was it? From the City players, the most.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the season, a few of them started to get up a little bit more. De Bruyne and Sterling himself got into double figures again.
Yeah, but there
was nobody up on 25 goals.
He hasn't played well for City for at least 12 months, Sterling. I think anytime I've seen him playing, I think he's not really having a go. He looks like he wants to get away. And Guardiola said he hasn't fallen out with him, but he did leave him out of the team an awful lot. I mean, he didn't play that many games last season. And the great thing about football, Nathan, you can see them out there. Is he having a go? Is he not having a go? I didn't see it with Sterling. Definitely not. So I'm not surprised that he's going. And if he's got Haaland in, I mean, that's if you call that a swap, then it's a huge swap in ahead for Manchester City, as I see it.
Calvin Phillips is a player we've spoken about quite a bit over the last couple of seasons. Everyone, I know all the Leeds United fans are always interested in your thoughts, particularly on the midfielders. There's been any amount of speculation, particularly around Manchester United. He's ended up going to Manchester City. I'm interested how you see this working out for him, because Rodri was exceptional last season. He ends up in the team of the season. Fernandinho is gone. Do you see him and Rodri rotating, that one of them plays every second game, or could you see a situation where Rodri and Phillips play in the middle of midfield together?
I can't see them complementing each other, Nathan, to be honest. I think they're very similar in what they bring to a team. I mean, I've always been a little bit critical of Phillips, because, and I think, but the only thing in his favour, for I can see, I think he's been told at Leeds to be the defensive midfield player. Right, I think there's an awful lot more in him. His passing is brilliant when he does pass it, but he doesn't get on the ball as much as he should. He was saying for England as well, to dominate in a way that you should be dominating from the middle of the field. And funny enough, neither does Rodri. So I think they'll get on okay, but like the ideal combination would be somebody, one of the two of them, to really dominate the middle of the field by being creative. And I haven't never seen Rodri being creative, Nathan. He's always done okay. He's an A to B man, I call it. You know, he gets it from A to B, passing. But he's not putting anybody through. He doesn't score many goals. Neither does Phillips. So I think both of them, I'd say they can play together with the players that City have.
Yeah.
They've got an awful lot of skillful players around them. So it'll be interesting to see, do they play together? I think they can play together, but you'd need one of them, and I think it could be Phillips, that could be more creative in his game. He's a lovely passer of the ball, he's a lovely kicker of the ball, but I think he's been told he's a defensive midfield player when I see him for England and Leeds. I think there's a lot more in him if he wants to do it, and he has to want to do it himself.
Is it the right move for Phillips? Listen, I know it's almost impossible to turn down Manchester City if they come looking for you, but he is going to be fighting with Rodri for a place. He's not going to play every single match. He's not going to be the integral figure that he was maybe at Leeds. Do you think he could have looked at one of those other top clubs, Manchester United, where maybe he would have been more of an integral part of the team?
Well, if I were him, I would have gone to City.
Right.
Manchester United have an awful lot to do, Nathan. And with the ability that he has, I mean, he's been played in the Leeds team that's okay, but they're not up there with Manchester City. So it should improve him. If I'd say Guardiola would tell him he expects more from him on the ball. And if you're playing for City with a lot of good players around you, Nathan, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. So I think it'd be a success for them. To be honest, now I'm not a big Rodri fan. He's okay, but I never see him getting on the ball and really making a goal. He gets it A to B okay. But if you look at his goal scoring record, he doesn't score many goals, Rodri. And I think in City, he should be scoring quite a lot of goals from the middle of the field. Now, he's a good player, but he's limited, in my opinion, what he brings to the team. And I find Phillips at England and Leeds in a similar situation.
Yeah.
I think he can do an awful lot more. I don't think he was asked to do an awful lot at Leeds because he was regarded as the holding midfield player, and similarly with England. But I think the ability he has, I think is more natural ability than Rodri, if he's encouraged to do it. And I'd be surprised if Guardiola doesn't encourage him to be better and take on more in the team than he actually does at the moment.
What about Manchester United then? Erik ten Hag has come in as manager. They're heading off on their pre-season tour tomorrow, and they've signed just the one player so far, who is Terrell Malaysia from Feyenoord, full-back. They've been linked with any amount of players. Seems Christian Eriksen, that deal is pretty much done for Eriksen to come. They're still chasing Frankie de Jong from Barcelona as well, but it's all been overshadowed by Cristiano Ronaldo over the past week, and it seems his decision that he wants to leave the club because they're not playing Champions League football next season. For ten Hag, should he let Ronaldo go?
Oh yeah. I mean, if a player doesn't want to play for you, Nathan, he hasn't come back. I mean, he's supposed to be ill or there's somebody ill in the family, but he hasn't made an effort to come back. And he's not shown the right attitude if he wants to come back to Manchester and make a contribution. It looks like he wants to get away, Nathan. And it's very, very difficult for the manager. But all he can do, I'm only saying if I was in this, I just say, well, look, you have to go. If you want to go, you go. Because you have to have players in the club that's committed to what needs to be done, Nathan. And that doesn't seem to be the case with Ronaldo. I mean, he hasn't come back for training yet. This new manager has a big, big job to do, Nathan. There's no doubt about that. He has the Ronaldo problem, but he's got other players. Can he get them in? He's a lot to do, and it's going to take a bit of time to do it. But I don't think he can have Ronaldo in the club, despite the fact that he's a great player, as we know, that you're building team spirit, and he hasn't shown the right attitude so far. Because the right attitude is to get back as quickly as you can, the new manager, get into the training and get into the team, and the manager knows what he is. He really at the moment, he doesn't know where he is, in my opinion, the manager. And he needs time to get the Ronaldo situation sorted out as quickly as possible to get concentrating on all the other players in the club, getting the players in that he wants. It's the big thing now, and getting rid of the players he doesn't want. But you can't have a player, no matter who it is, Ronaldo or anybody else, dictating the policy as he is doing at the moment.
Would you worry for Ten Hag considering the pattern of Manchester United struggling to get deals done looks to be continuing. We've just spoken about Manchester City. They've got their big business done. Liverpool have kept Salah, they've got rid of Mane, they've brought in Darwin Núñez. Tottenham have a lot of business done. Arsenal have brought in Gabriel Jesus. Chelsea, it seems, are on the verge of signing Raheem Sterling. They've let Romelu Lukaku go, whereas Manchester United, again, are in complete limbo with a squad that looked a million miles off it last season. If Ronaldo goes, you know, you're looking at a scenario where Marcus Rashford is their really only out-and-out striker aside from a youngster like Anthony Elanga, and Rashford again looked miles off it at the end of last season. That right now they're in a far worse state than they were even at the end of the season.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, Nathan, but he's only just gone in, and he will find a reluctance from players that in Ferguson's time would be delighted to get to Manchester United. There's no doubt about that. But I think he'll get the players. I think he knows enough players. He's come from a club where he's won his league 3 times, and so he'd know players. Now, I think the players he'd know would come to him because they obviously got on well with him as well. But Manchester
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating.